Nothing in what I have done amounts to an impeachable
Welcome
offense.
to Rappler, your social news network, where stories inspire community engagement and digitally fueled actions for social change. Rappler comes from the root words rap to discuss, plus ripple to make waves.
Mastermind of what investigators call one of the biggest scams in the country's history. Now the Nepal's
big super typhoon Yolanda, internationally named Haiyan, one of the 4 most powerful typhoons ever recorded in the world, and the most powerful to have made landfall.
We all need heroes during a disaster. Introducing the Agos Alert Map, an online platform that combines technology with top-down decision-making and bottom-up crowdsourcing.
Do you see Ayi is doing her stand-up in front of her camera, which is an iPhone, and our cameramen are laughing at her. The funny thing is she posted much faster, so that's part of the advantage of technology. Every story on Rappler has a mood meter. Every vote on each of those stories brings you to the mood navigator, which puts together all the votes for the mood of the day.
Hello, I'm Tasha Gutierrez. I'm the Bureau Chief of Rappler Indonesia, and I'm here to answer some questions.
Isang gabi po ito ng pagpaparangal, pero hindi ko pa gagagpasin ng opportunity para pasalamatan ang mga movers namin sa iba't ibang parte ng Pilipinas.
Okay, tagal din kita minahal.
This is Rappler Talk. We're sitting now with Davao Mayor Rudy Duterte. Thank you for joining us.
Salamat sa panahon mo.
Can you please, you are the
Power
man we
and
have.
authority of the president. I know what is legal and what is not. You mind your work, and I will mind mine.
Yung akin lang o katarungan po para sa mga abusadong polis.
And today is 120th day of the war, and we're seeing human skeletons among the debris.
Sa buong Malacanang, hindi po ako pwedeng pumasok.
Kasi yung ban ngayon, hindi lang siya ban from Malacanang premises. Nag-expand na siya to a ban covering any event where the president is going to attend.
Rappler CEO and Executive Editor Maria Ressa was served an arrest warrant this afternoon, February 13, at the Rappler headquarters in connection with an alleged violation of the Philippine cybercrime law.
Business community.
Apparently, the Philippine government isn't satisfied with arresting just me.
This is a bad signal to send to the rest of the world.
Time magazine names journalist under siege for the person of the year. Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, Rappler CEO Maria Ressa.
For what Time called, quote, great risks in pursuit of greater truth.
Bakit tayo, woman of the century, Hindi na. Ako simple lang ako.
The World Health Organization declares the novel coronavirus a public health emergency of international concern.
Community quarantine is hereby imposed.
Pinaka-apektado ngayon ay ang Metro Manila at nag-declare na si Pangulong Duterte ng public health emergency.
Officials estimate the country temporarily lost 1.2 to 1.5 million jobs.
Pharmaceutical company executives say rolling out one or several COVID-19 vaccines before 2021 would be daunting.
Resolution to deny ABS-CBN's franchise application is hereby adopted. Pursuant to Section 49 of the Rules of the House of Representatives, all House bills and House resolutions relative to the grant or renewal of the franchise application of ABS-CBN Corporation are hereby laid on the table.
The foreign policy. In the international arena, we have vigorously pursued an independent foreign policy centered and promote. I will just give the cue, then you clap your hands.
Diaz makes Olympic history as she wins the Philippines' first gold in the Tokyo Olympics, winning the top prize in the women's 55kg weightlifting Monday, July 26.
Bumabalik ako kung bakit ko ito ginagawa. Ginagawa ko po ito kasi dahil mahal ko ang Pilipinas. Mahal ko ang weightlifting at ginagamit ako ni God para give inspirations to the young generations.
Hello? Am I talking to Maria Ressa?
You are? Yeah.
It's a great pleasure for me, Maria, to inform you that you are awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for 2021.
Close your eyes and imagine the world as it should be. A world of peace, trust, and empathy. Open your eyes. Now go. We have to make it happen. Please, let's hold the line together. Thank you.
It's a big one. What happened?
My source everyone the case. Tinawagan na sila?
Oh, may papel na nga doon. Okay. And then I'll call my sources from the case.
Okay, tapos
Impeachment of Chief Justice Corona to the new variant of coronavirus in 2022. That's how we started and ended our first decade in Rappler. Good evening, everyone. I am Jules Giang, Rappler's Head of Community.
We're still going through several legal cases and have endured countless attacks in the newsroom, but we ended 2021 with a Nobel Peace Prize. When I see that video, it still gets me teary-eyed. So good evening, I'm Margie De Leon, Rappler's Lifestyle and Entertainment and Opinion Editor.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to #A Decade of Courage, Rappler's 10th Anniversary Special. Good evening once again to you, Margie, and happy 10th Anniversary, Rappler!
Yes, good evening, Jules. And yes, happy anniversary to everyone. And thank you all for coming here today. Just a reminder, we are streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So you can share your greetings for Rappler online using our official hashtag for today, #A Decade of Courage.
Ayan, isang dekada, 'di ba, ng katapangan. Yan. So, nakita natin, Margie, no, sa video pa lang kanina na it's been a very eventful decade for Rappler.
Yes, very much.
And I remember that time, I was still in college when this very interesting orange-themed website was launched. So, it looked very refreshing and it really sounded like us, young. Very young yung tone ng Rappler.
Yes, totally. We've embraced technology as part of our journalism. That really was what set Rappler apart. And not only that, we have, as Maria would love to say, activated communities of action for impact throughout that decade. So before we get started, speaking of tech, I'd like to ask one of our veteran movers, Voltaire Tupas, about his most memorable experiences with tech. Voltaire, are you here?
Diyan ba si Voltaire? Naku,
Diyan ba
idol
si
ko yan.
Voltaire? Marami ang kwento for us. Have you guys read his Rappler 10 anniversary essay? It's the best thing ever.
Sobrang fun. Parang naririnig ko rin yung boses niya habang binabasa ko. Okay, babalikan natin si Voltaire mamaya, Margie.
Sige, mamaya na lang. Okay.
Okay, so for tonight, of course, we have invited all current Rapplers, former Rapplers, and partners here on Zoom. So to all of us to take a look back at the decade of fearless independent journalism.
Yes, so to formally open our... ayun na si Voltaire! Hello!
Congratulations!
Hey! Voltaire, pakita mo naman yung beautiful face mo.
Naririnig ko rin yung boses niya habang...
Hello. Ayun. So,
Happy anniversary, Rappler!
Yes, thank you, Voltaire. Happy anniversary then to you too. You were such a huge part of the company. And speaking of that, could you share maybe some tidbits about your struggles with tech in the beginning, lalo na sa early days of Rappler? Ayun na si Voltaire. Hello! Hello? Ay, mukhang may mga tech difficulties.
Settle down pa lang ako.
We want to start the program with a bang. So definitely dapat ikaw yung magsa-start nun. Such a huge part of the company. And speaking of that, could you share maybe some tidbits about your there's a delay somewhere. Okay, so since we have a bit of technical difficulty, we'll move on with this later na lang.
Alam nyo, hindi naman talaga ako tech. Yung tawag sa amin, techno-peasant at that time.
Techno-peasant? Bakit, Voltaire?
Grabe yung delay.
the program with a bang. So definitely dapat ikaw yung magsa-start doon.
Ay, kaya pala. Kasi dalawa naka-open yung aking mobile. Tapos may
Ayun,
desktop.
see? So,
So ako, grabe yung delay sa mobile. So, how does this work? Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
yay! Ayun. Classic Voltaire, may technical difficulties agad.
Ayan na yan. Kasi nakikinig ako doon sa mobile phone. Nandito pala ako sa desktop. Okay.
Ayun.
Kaya grabe yung delay. So, hello. It's nice to see everyone. I'm back in Manila after 2 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because you were busy farming.
I know, right? Because that was my world before I joined Rappler. So I'm just closing the loop, as Maria would say.
Voltaire, baka pwede mong buksan yung cam mo.
Pwede bang ganon?
Oo naman.
Pwede.
Ikaw ang first guest natin for tonight.
For you, anything, Voltaire.
Parang hindi ako ready. Nahiya ako magpakita kasi yung aking hair. Nagkamali yung aking barbero. Nakikita niyo ako?
No, you are just a blur. What happened?
Ayun,
there you are.
Hello.
Hi, Voltaire. God.
Medyo kalbo ako ngayon.
Ayun, so before we get started with the program, why don't you share maybe some memory you have of your tech difficulties back in the day? You were saying you were a techno peasant?
Yeah, that was what we were called techno peasants, I think, along with Patricia. I recall posting the entire web on the carousel. I don't know how it happened, but it did happen anyway. So grabe yung grabe ang ordeal na pinagdaanan sa akin ng tech team. But I love tech team, the tech team of Rappler. And I think ironically, yun din yung naging memorable kong part ng experience ko sa Rappler because of technology. Nabuo ng Rappler yung isa sa mga platforms na malaki ang tulong during disasters, which was Agos. Really one of the visions ni Maria na we tried to implement, and I think we were able to save a lot of lives when we rolled out the platform. So I'm very proud of that initiative.
Yes, and kumbaga, for context sa mga viewers natin, parang proof of concept yun na pwede talagang emerge yung journalism, technology, and community. So yung Agos.
Yeah. Yan palagi ang in-emphasize ni Maria from the get-go nung kami ay umuupo. Siyempre, di ko naman mag-gets yung pinagsasabi niya. Basta, she would say community, technology, and journalism that would revolutionize the media landscape at a time when people were starting to get empowered by social media. At that time, medyo iba pa yung landscape, pero very promising. And kami naman, go, fight lang tayo. And then that's how we launched on Facebook. And in fact, I'm wearing the first t-shirt.
Can we see it?
Yan, first t-shirt namin sa Baguio.
Move
Baguio. Even before Rappler launched nung January 2012. So September, I think I recall, nag-move Baguio, first round ng aming series before we went to Manila, LB, and the rest of the country.
Ayun. So that's awesome. And thank you so much, Voltaire, for starting off our trip down memory lane.
Oo nga, wallpaper ako sinimulan nyo.
Yes, of course, of all people. I was thinking like, who should start this? Who should I ask first? Siyempre, ikaw yung unang na remember ko. And I remember when I first came into Rappler, like you were saying na, oh, ikaw yung bata, ako yung matanda, blah, blah. And now, like 10 years later, like I feel so old amongst all the somethings.
Na-imagine ko si Ma'am Beth nag-freak out ngayon sa bata, no? Dahil sa technical,
Hindi pa naman so far.
Hindi pa naman. Okay, so thank you so much, Voltaire.
Thank you rin.
Thank you. Okay, so let's move on, Jules.
Okay, so asahan po natin sa mga viewers natin na isa lang si Voltaire sa marami pang mga rappers na susundutin natin yung kanilang mga memories para ma-share sa atin tonight. So, for tonight, we have invited once again all current Rapplers, former Rapplers, and our partners here on Zoom to take a look back at the decade of fearless independent journalism.
All right, so to formally open our program, we invite our boss, Rappler CEO and Nobel laureate, Maria Ressa, to give her keynote address. Yay!
Maria, please unmute.
Here I was already. Well, first I was going through all the chats. Thank you, guys. Old and new, you are here. I can't believe it. It's 10 years. Back to all of us, as Voltaire has shown, is a lot of hard work, a lot of perseverance, a lot of courage, and a lot of hope. Woohoo! We made it. So congratulations, team, if you are watching. The people here, my parents are also watching. Hi, mom and dad, we're still okay, we're here. Thank you for joining Team Truth, Team Trust, Team Facts. And who would have thought a decade ago that we would zoom in on facts? Facts were just a given, right? Back then we had a dream and we built it, story by story, tweet by tweet. A lot of the names that I see here, person by person, you brought all of you in and then you helped us craft what it was going to become. And here is Rappler today. Thank you all for making Rappler possible, for standing up for what's right. I think that if there's anything that we have proven in the last decade, it is that doing the right thing is the right thing, right? Honesty, and that now I sound like a Hallmark card, but honesty is the best policy. And faith in the goodness of human nature, especially now at this time of hate, well, that's the right path because we believe in the good. And, of course, I was going to wear it, but remember, I brought this all the way to Oslo. This is the 2014 t-shirt that we did when, in order to be the good, you have to believe in the good. And now the 10th year anniversary, medyo sleeker and dry fit, and with a 10th year behind. So be the good, right? For every Rappler, past, present, and future. Thank you for taking a stand. Even when you're afraid, because there were definitely those moments, there were times when we felt like we were just jumping out of a plane in midair and we didn't know whether the parachute would open. And we did it because we believe that silence is complicity, that not doing these stories, not pointing out what was wrong would violate not just the standards and ethics of journalism, but our own personal codes of honor, right? So anyway, I wish we were having a party, but it is what it is. Our world is what it is. So sending each of you virtual hugs. Tonight is about, again, as Voltaire reminded us, the 3 pillars of Rappler: technology, journalism, and community. We'll have a 20-minute panel on each, but let me lay out why these pillars became even more important in the last 5 years as facts and journalists came under attack. For technology, okay, if you watched the Nobel lecture or anything that I have said in the last 5 years, you would have heard me say this because I say it all the time, that social media, the platforms we started as a Facebook page. And I remember one of you guys turning the camera upside down so I get a shoe. Guess who that was? But social media now, the platforms that distribute the news have become behavior modification systems that are insidiously manipulating us. They're biased against facts, biased against journalists. Okay, so here we go. Without facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. Without trust, we have no shared reality, no democracy, and it becomes impossible to deal with the world's existential problems. Climate change, that's our first community of action in Agos. Coronavirus, this is what we are living through now. And then this battle for truth.
In this day and age, with this virus loose in the real world and the virus of lies in the virtual world, well, in this day and age, lies kill. So this is why I've constantly asked every Rappler, old and present, this question that we had to answer 5 years ago. What are you willing to sacrifice for the truth? And then we started asking that of every Filipino concerned about our democracy, of every citizen around the world who's concerned about democracy and the rise of fascism, because democracy is now atomized into each of our individual battles for integrity. And with elections coming up on May 9th, when Filipinos, we are going to go to the polls, we're going to elect more than 18,000 government officials, including our president. This is it. This moment, this is an existential moment for us. Avengers assemble. That's what I've started calling it, right? So if you've got friends with superpowers, bring them on. This is it. Okay, journalism and journalists are under attack on all fronts, from our business to our reputations, which were the first things that started getting attacked 5 years ago. Those attacks enabled by tech again. Now, we really see which of our leaders live their values. And sadly, part of the problem of putting these guardrails on tech comes down to our government's own information operations, what it proudly calls propaganda, now on steroids, built on tech, right? All right. Some will say that we at Rappler were weakened by all these attacks. I don't know. It's certainly tough, but we're still here, stronger than ever, poised for the future. We were here before the Duterte administration, and we will be here after. Knock on wood. I suppose I also have to thank President Duterte, because without him, we might never have known who we really are. His attacks on media forced every Rappler, forced us all to rise to the challenge, like a diamond that's honed under the deepest pressure. Except this time has also degraded not just our democracy, but I think for Filipinos, hopes and dreams for the future. That we cannot let happen. Which brings us to the third pillar, community. There's so many of you to thank. And if I just go through all of the names here, you have shown us the way. When we were at our darkest moments, you rallied around us. You helped fund us. You formed your own communities to stand up for what you believe the next generation deserves. Let me also thank our advertisers who stood by us and helped us create new products. Our board members, I see you here as well, some of whom, and I'm sorry about this, have criminal cases filed against them because of Rappler. And of course, my co-founders were called the Manangs, Glenda, Chai, and Beth. This little Rappler, this endeavor took all of the four of us, heart and soul, demanded of each and every Rappler mover, Rappler Plus member, supporter, and you, our reader. You are why we do what we do. Oh my gosh, and to our global Hold the Line coalition, you know what's at stake for the world, right? If the Philippines fails, the dominoes begin again. So thank you, everyone. Happy 10th anniversary, Little Rappler. I'm so looking forward to what you will become in the next 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria Ressa. Palakpakan natin, Maria Ressa, our Rappler CEO. Thank you so much for shining the light and being the light for all of us. And Margie, very relevant pa rin yung question no, na sinabi ni Maria years back. What are you willing to sacrifice for the truth? And this is very relevant for this year, election season.
Very much. And as Maria said, thank you, Tatay Digong, for keeping us strong. Everyone thank Duterte for making us go through all of this, because we honestly wouldn't be here without him, or what he's done, or whatever. Ayun. And when she mentioned all the sacrifices and all the what do you call this, the evolutions we've had to go through, I think to what we're doing right now, the fact that we're having a 10th anniversary celebration here on Zoom because of the pandemic and because of everything that's happening right now. I mean, this is the kind of company that doesn't stop, that doesn't let anything stop them from doing what it has to do. So I'm very proud to be part of this company that has the kind of perseverance that it has. So
Right.
before we go to our first panel, we'd like to invite you to watch a performance from folk singer and activist Noel Cabangon. So Noel has been a regular at Rappler Live Jams, having appeared 5 times since 2016, actually. So let's give him a warm round of applause from wherever you're watching.
Happy anniversary, Rappler. Maraming salamat po sa pagkakataon na ito na makasama kayo sa inyong anibersaryo. Isa pong malaking karangalan. Congratulations din kay Maria Ressa for the Nobel Peace Prize. It is truly an affirmation to what Rappler is doing. And thank you, Rappler, for holding the line. Thank you for fighting for truth. Thank you for fighting against tyranny. Thank you for fighting for press freedom. And thank you for fighting for the Filipino people. Maraming salamat po. Mabuhay kayo. Mawawala rin ang dilim at liliwanag ang langit. Pagkabigo ay madadaig at ang sigla ay babalik. Sugat ng hidwaan ay mapapawi at malulunasan. Ang galit at pagkahati-hati ay maghihilom at magsasama rin. Bagong araw ay narito na. Ngayon na ang bagong simula. Bagong umaga'y narito na. Ang nasa una ngayon na may uusbong ang mga binhi at sasagana ang ani. Magkukulay rosas ang paligid at sa sariwa ang hangin. Katotohanan ay mananaig, ang wasto ay maghahari.
tarunga'y manunumbalik at magwawagi pag-ibig. Bagong araw ay narito na, ngayon na ang bagong simula. Bagong umaga'y narito na, ang nasa una. Ngayon na may mahuhuli. Bagong araw ay narito na, ngayon na ang bagong simula. Bagong umaga'y narito na, ngayon na ang bagong simula. Bagong araw ay narito na, ang nasa una. Ngayon na may mahuhuli.
Maraming salamat po. Mabuhay kayo, Rappler. Happy anniversary.
Right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Noel Cabangon. Margie, sobrang ganda as always, no, ng mga mensahe ng mga awitin ni Noel Cabangon. And yung magandang mensahe dito sa atin, bagong araw, bagong umaga ay narito na. So this is a reminder to all of us, no, na after 10 years, we move forward. Lalo na binanggit na katotohanan ay mananaig, katarungan ang magwawagi. Diba? Sobrang gandang mensahe niyan as we head towards a new leadership by May 2022.
Yeah, at another takeaway I have from his performance is parang kamukha niya si Voltaire. Ako lang ba yun?
Pwede.
Pwede
Siguro
ba?
mamaya pwede natin balikan si Voltaire. Baka meron din siyang song number na pantapat kay Noel.
Okay, God forbid. Okay, so before we move on, we'd love actually to hear a little background on our program, Live Jam, how it came to be. So if we have Wyatt Ong here, I'd like to call on our former entertainment editor, the legendary Wyatt Ong, to share stories with us. Hey, Wyatt.
Hey, everyone. Happy anniversary.
Hi, it's
Hi,
so
Wyatt.
nice to
Nice
see
to meet
you.
you.
Hey,
Hugs are
you're-
present.
Hugs. Okay, so could you share I know that you wrote this really great essay for the Rappler 10th anniversary about the early days of Live Jam. Could you share a little bit more about that first performance and the challenges that you went through?
I miss you, Margie. Thanks for having me. So actually, the Rapplers who were there will know that we were always being hounded for traffic. And the Facebook issue had not started quite yet at the time, but it was the foothold was there. And I was very worried about what traffic would look like for the next year, 5 years, 10 years. And then I was pretty desperate, which was my whole mood for all 4 years that I was there. So other editors might now understand this too. So when this email came in from Ian Urusha, and they asked me if we could have, Jonoy, Danao, Bullet Tumas, and Evidancel over to perform. I mean, no, for an interview for their upcoming concert. I asked them if they would like to perform, and I actually forgot about the email because I didn't think that they would say yes.
Right.
And then, as I said in the essay, they did say yes, and I was very upset and very excited because I had never done anything like that before. But it's really the Rappler way to just iterate. So I didn't include that in the essay, but none of us wanted to host anything. So I remember asking people, asking around, and Marga very kindly, I think, introduced us to Zach Lucero, who came in as our first host. But then the first live jam was so good that I didn't want to go another week without having a second one. And then very quickly, we realized that it would be very, very expensive if we were to get a host. So then Vernice was, as a host, was born. And then Noel, if you're there, thank you so much for coming to that first live jam. That was the first live jam I ever hosted. So memories right there. Thanks everyone for having me.
Yay! Thank you so much, Wyatt. Yes, and we've had the live jam consistently over the next 6 years. Until now, we still have regular live jams, and we've had like the biggest names in Philippine music to grace our stage. We've had like Gary V, we've had Lolita Carbon of Asin, we've had Jaya. What else? I mean, for the 90s people, we've even have the Moffats. For
yeah, I had their poster when I was a tween, so that was,
yeah. So until now, I mean, I'm very happy that we still have live jam even during the pandemic, because it's been able to give artists a platform to perform even when performances aren't allowed here in Manila. Yun. So thank you so much, Wyatt, for sharing your story with us. Thank you
so much. Go LSE. Go
go LSE. Woo!
Right.
Okay,
Thank you, Wyatt. Alam mo, Margie, nakakatuwa, no? Kasi parang it's a crash course for all of us, lalo na sa mga newbies na Rappler, na ganito yung legacy na nabuo throughout the past 10 years. And it's so iconic na makita yung mga personalities na mga nanguna dito. So thank you so much to all of you guys. And we promise, syempre, na itutuloy lahat ng mga to as we head towards another new decade. So now, Margie, now it's time for us to learn a little bit about the story behind Rappler.
Yes, so as Maria said earlier, Rappler is built on 3 pillars: journalism, technology, and community. So today we look back using these 3 pillars to discuss not just the past 10 years, but the years to come.
Okay, so our first panel will be moderated no other than by our Executive Director, Glenda Gloria. Here they will talk about the evolution of independent media in the Philippines. Let's all welcome Miss Glenda Gloria.
Yes, Miss Glenda. Woo!
Hello, everyone. Hello, Rapplers. Oh my God, it's so heartwarming to see everyone, the excess, the presence, and the future Rapplers. It's really great to see you. We also have a panel of Rapplers who will talk about the profession that has given us so much joy, but also so much pain. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you to this panel that will tackle journalism and the future of independent media. And I will first introduce the wisest panelist of the 3. Marites Vitug is our editor-at-large at Rappler and a key pillar of the organization. Marites was also the founding editor of Newsbreak magazine, which eventually merged with Rappler in 2012. She is also our guiding light in our investigations in the last 10 years. Marites, did you even think that we'd come this far?
Hi, nice to see you all. Shall I start now?
Yes. I hope you're sober.
After my 3rd glass of wine. Yeah, it's a milestone actually if you look back at independent journalism in the Philippines. And as you said, I think when you said I'm the wisest, it means also in years. So that's a nice way of aging me. Anyway, so it's a milestone really in independent journalism. And as I told you, I think offline, Glenda, my relationship with independent journalism has been one of unrequited love. I have never resigned from any of the independent publications I joined since I started. They just folded up on me. I mean, that's how to navigate independent journalism. But we can talk about that later. But again, today is a milestone. We should treasure it. And maybe in the future, it will no longer be unrequited love. It will be a fulfillment of our dream to really have an independent news organization.
Well, it is not unrequited because you are with Rappler, and Rappler is now 10 years old. Maritas, thank you. Our second panelist is Dr. Leloy Claudio. He's actually in Manila right now, but he's based in the West Coast as assistant professor of the South and Southeast Asian Studies at Berkeley. But to many of you at Rappler, you know Leloy to be the host of the popular Basaganang Trip, which is the easy to digest show on history that we launched in 2017. Leloy, your watchers miss you.
Oh, miss na miss ko na rin kayo.
Pagbasagan ng trip sa'yo. Go ahead.
Okay, I really miss everyone. And ako, I'm inside and outside of Rappler. Yung first experience of of course of independent journalism was I was a lecturer sa Department of Communication sa Ateneo. At napansin ko na si Chai Ho Filenya was taking all of the A players of our department and bringing them to Rappler. And even outside our department, some of the most brilliant people, my high school debate teammate, who was a big pain in my ass, and I was a big pain in her ass also, Patricia Evangelista. She was one of the first people in Rappler. So I noticed na grabe kagad yung energy first few years pa lang. And I think that's something about independent media. It's all in the Philippines. Lagi mga bata yung mga nagpapatakbo. Whether you're talking about La Solidaridad, ang babata nila Rizal, whether or not you're talking about a probe team with young manangs, laging bata yung nag-energize ng independent media. And as a millennial who's aged with Rappler, I hope yung mga bagong bata, yung mga Gen Z, they continue to bring energy to the organization.
Thank you, Leloy. And the third panelist is, of course, a former Rappler reporter who spent 7 years with Rappler, actually, who is now the executive director of the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism. Let's all welcome Carmela Fonbuena. Carmela, kumusta? Where you are right now? But yeah, maybe walk us through the early days of Rappler when you were covering the Corona trial.
Yeah, those were the days. Happy anniversary, Rappler. I think there's a lot of things that I'm fond of, about Rappler. But I think who's here? Natasha is here. Is Ayla here? We were the first beat reporters of Rappler, and I remember we were always in the front lines of the biggest political events in the country. And then we started with Corona trial. We started with a bang in 2022, and that's because of the exclusive story of Marites. And then the impeachment trial happened. That's how we introduced Rappler. And I remember it was the best of times. It was also the worst of times. So we had exclusive stories, but I also remember we were always under tremendous pressure because the great thing about Rappler is the collaboration between editors and reporters. But that also means you have Glenda Gloria, for example, who was a very unforgiving editor. You cannot be outscooped, otherwise should be very, very disappointed, and you cannot disappoint Glenda Gloria. And then Marites, Maria would always, give us leads, which we needed to follow up with our sources on the ground. And so this was the great thing about Rappler, and I think this is what I take with me wherever I go. That it's this journalism, the purpose of Rappler, which is good journalism.
Thank you so much, Carmela. Well, Marites, since you're the wisest in the panel, I'd like to ask you to recall for us that in the dying days and the dying years of the Marcos dictatorship, of course, there was this effort of independent journalists and independent newsroom to navigate that landscape despite the attacks and the censorship and the brutality of the Marcos regime. How did independent journalists, or how did editors for that matter, or reporters like you navigate that field?
I think, Glenda, just to give some perspective, there are two phases that I can think of. It's the pre-1983 press before Ninoy Aquino was assassinated, and the post-1983 until EDSA, after Ninoy was assassinated. I'm making an artificial line maybe, but because before 1983, I was, can I just show you this book? I was just going over it timely. It documents the struggles of the media from the early martial law years till 1983. You know, what's interesting is that the book contains articles that were banned by Panorama. Was then the largest circulating magazine and owned by Bulletin. And we had the women journalists then. Of course, you're all very young here, but with Arlene Babs, Melinda De Jesus, Sylvia Mayuga, Nines Cacho Olivares. And the editor of Panorama, Leti Jimenez Magsanok, was eventually fired. And it even reached Malacanang. So there was a lot of struggle, but a lot of pushing back and a lot of times when the limits were tested. So that's pre-1983. That was more difficult. Then post-83, when Aquino was assassinated, the political context changed because international attention became more focused on the Philippines. There was more pressure on Marcos. So ayan na, lumabas na yung mga opposition publications. And I was lucky to be with Business Day, which was independent publication, but which Marcos thought was small. Kasi nga, you're only talking to the business community. So medyo napabayaan kami. So we were able to report, well, not freely, but within the confines of the rules of not critically reporting on Marcos, on the First Lady, on the military. So those two phases. So doon ako na-hone sa political reporting sa Business Day. Again, testing the limits. You just keep trying. And I don't know, I think journalists naman have little sense of danger. So try and try to push back.
But yeah, fast forward to a few decades later, di ba, Marites? Of course, in 2001, you founded Newsbreak, but you had the option to join any of the biggest networks at that time, or even the biggest newspapers that were owned by big business. Why was it important for you to put up Newsbreak as an independent organization? And why did you choose that path?
Yeah, no, looking back, Glenda, you were part of it. So, and Chayo Filenya. But looking back, I think it's the dream. It's really a flame that's always burning in any journalist's heart, to be independent, not to be beholden to any big business or vested interest. I know that you can be independent even when you're working for a newspaper owned by big business. You can be as an individual, but maybe as an entire organization, ang daming pressure points. So it's really good to, the ideal is to run our own publication and as much as possible, call the shots. And that was our experience with Newsbreak. That's why I wrote in my essay on the 10th anniversary of Rappler, I was quite worried about Rappler in the beginning because that was how we started, when we had a lot of investigative reports and advertisers shunned us because, in Philippine society naman, the big business, they have businesses regulated by government. So takot sila na if they advertise with this Newsbreak magazine, I might be associated with them. I'll be called critical, opposition, and my business might not flourish as I want it to be. So it's a dream, Glenda, and I think Rappler is already on that track.
Yes, it's a dream that we share, and even the advertising issue was also something that we went through for a couple of years at least after the president attacked us in his sauna. But yeah, Leloy, Marites mentioned, there's always this flame burning that the journalists yearning to be independent. But I'm curious, is the notion of an independent media in the Philippines really embedded in our core as Filipino citizens? Or did it just come about as a result of political upheavals, for example, the Ninoy assassination, etc.?
Before I answer that, I just wanted to say na I saw that flame because I was there when Duterte threatened the Rappler newsroom. And I saw everyone freeze for a while, one moment. And then I think, Glenda, you were there and you said, wala yan. And then everybody just kind of waved it off. And I felt that at that point, parang readying yourselves for battle. And of course, we know where that led. And, that's one of the moments where you almost actually physically see the flame. Like I saw it in your eyes. I saw it in Maria's eyes. I saw the, baduy na kung baduy, eye of the tiger. That was the eye of the tiger moment for Rappler. I'm so glad to have been there. I think Ramona was there also. She caught that on camera. It's a kind of really beautiful moment. I think one thing I want to say is that the liberal democratic tradition is inherent to Filipino nationalism because Filipino nationalism was articulated by yung generation ni Rizal. And if you look at yung text ni Rizal, very clear, he said the reason why we should separate from Spain is because Spain cannot give us our basic rights. One of those basic rights that Rizal says Spain can no longer give us because of the colonial relationship is freedom of the press. Napaka-explicit nun. So in a way, our country was born from the principles of freedom of the press. So hindi may iwasan, it's in our political DNA. And of course, you see this not just in the generation of Rizal. You see this, of course, during the American period. You see this, for example, yung Sakdal Rebellion began as a kind of journalistic rebellion as well. Of course, you see it in the Marcos period and you see it today.
Yes, that's a very important point, Leloy. Kasi parang, di ba, as Filipino journalists, parang we take pride in that rich history. And to just say na, but yung Solidaridad ba yung unang independent media? Matatawag ba?
Yeah. Oh, pero at saka, well, marami rin naman sa Pilipinas. Of course, Solidaridad is the big one. But you also have local newspapers, for example, yung El Ilocano ni Isabelo de los Reyes that were publishing almost coterminously with La Solidaridad. And then shortly afterward, this American periodicals like El Debate, for example, Spanish language periodicals that were fiercely independent, actually were really criticizing the American administration. Too bad nga, Ambeto Campos says we are separated from our past because we don't read Spanish. We are actually also separated from a critical journalistic tradition that emerged ironically during the early American period that was in Spanish, because writing in Spanish was kind of like a oppositional flair, because this was the period of Americanism and emerging English.
Yeah, thank you. Carmela, you're the youngest in the panel. I think you are. But, Carmela was also a reporter for Newsbreak magazine before joining Rappler. But she also had a chance to work in a big media company. And Carmela, meron bang difference working for a journalist-led, journalist-owned media organization kumpara sa isang newsroom that is, a big network, for example, that is owned by big business with other business interests? Pros and cons?
I think in my experience, independently owned newsrooms seem to have stronger emphasis on watchdog journalism. And the priorities are clear. Maybe because, there's smaller staff, you have to prioritize, you can't do everything. So there's emphasis on anti-corruption stories, pursuit of good governance, human rights, and as opposed to, I suppose, the day-to-day reporting. And again, I suppose we do talk about bottom lines. We are aware that funding is critical. And as Marites said, some independent news organizations fold up. But there's a culture that is secondary. I've always felt that. And which also explains, I suppose, why we wouldn't mind not having the lucrative salaries if we join the bigger organizations. What did we call it? Democratic discount?
Yes.
And the sense of purpose is very clear. And we've been through tough times, Newsbreak and in Rappler. And I started as a journalist, Newsbreak, as a researcher before I became a staff writer. And this was the difficult years. These were the difficult years under the Arroyo presidency. And now Rappler, difficult years under President Duterte. Clarity of purpose, I think, has always been very important when times get hard. But it's always what has kept us going. And I saw that in Newsbreak. I saw that in Rappler.
Yeah, thank you. Well, let's talk now about the future challenges. And Marites, sustainability has always been the main problem for independent media. We've experienced this in Newsbreak, for example. And there is actually a global fund that is co-chaired by our CEO, Maria Ressa, the International Fund for Public Interest Media, that will seek donations from governments, foundations, and private companies to help fund news providers, both from, it's a marriage of the global South and South and North. What do you think are the prospects for that? And is sustainability the only challenge facing independent media now?
Yes, sustainability has always been an issue, but under Duterte, he added one, this existential threat when he threatened to kill press freedom. But, I really am happy that there is such a group, Maria, and that there is a need for this, especially at this time when democracy is on the decline in many parts of the world. And, we see in our neighbors, Myanmar journalists need help. They're fleeing to Thailand to do the reporting there, Cambodia as well. And of course, here in the Philippines, that's why it's just, maybe we just have to also look at the quirks of grants. I remember, Glenda, we used to do a lot of work just to get grants for Newsbreak. And there is the donor-driven grants and the grants that we can decide what we want to do. So there's also a balancing act. So I hope that this global fund will really listen to what the news organizations need, more really driven by the journalists rather than by the donors. So I'm really excited about this. I hope Rappler gets funds from that, even if Maria is the co-chair.
Maybe I can answer that later. Leroy, but given the rise of, Marites cited the other problem, which is really the rise of authoritarianism. Is there hope?
Well,
independent media now, given all the disinformation as well?
I don't know if I draw comfort from this or I just like it. The former chair Chito Gascon, the late great Chito Gascon, said that he thinks things will get worse before they get better, but they will get better. And I don't know if that's a half full or half empty statement, because ultimately there is optimism in that statement. I don't think we can discount the fact that a lot of things are stacked against us. Yung kaso na lang, sobrang linaw, kinasuhan ng Rappler. Dinadagdagan pa yung kaso, ultimo mga board members yan, sabi ni Maria, nakasuhan. But at the same time, I think there is a kind of tenacity to the democratic spirit of the Filipinos, na kahit Philippine democracy goes through kind of like almost like 30-year intervals of democratizations and then a reversion back to kind of authoritarianism, bumabalik eh. So it will get better, I think.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm being asked to wrap up, but I think I'd like you to end this discussion with a message to, because of course we have reached the 10th year. It's a very inspiring moment for Rappler, but of course the 10 years have also been fraught with crisis after crisis after crisis, and probably a lot of the Filipino journalists out there are inspired by Rappler, but are also they see Rappler as a cautionary tale, and probably it's also scaring them. I mean, journalists wanting to build independent newsroom. What do you tell them when they doubt the value and the sustainability of independent media? Marites?
Yeah, I think I call on our colleagues, young and old, let's support each other. Let's not be divided. We've seen such a divided press in the past years. No, we all have one goal, that is truth telling, that is chronicling the facts here in the country. So for the young journalists, let's get together, let's support each other, and let's not dream to have our unrequited love bloom into a real true love story. Bye. Should I say bye already?
Oh, don't say bye.
Okay.
How about you, Carmela?
I think my takeaway from my years in Rappler and just the overall situation is just how independent media is important in a democracy. And we often take for granted our freedoms. And a lot of people, I'm afraid, do not realize, the bargains they're making when they would tolerate the government's attacks on our freedoms. I just can't imagine what would have happened if, for example, Rappler didn't fight back, if Rappler was silenced, if ABS-CBN was silenced, and if other independent journalists, are silenced, and if there's chilling effect on the media, because obviously the government was really trying to make an example of Maria and of Rappler, right? Can you just imagine what kind of news we would be watching now or reading now? And we know the stories of autocratic countries where the media are controlled, and we really, I hope we don't we don't want that to happen to us.
Thank you, Carmela. Leloy?
I think we should remember that journalism is a guild and a profession. So in a way, there has to be solidarity among journalists. And then finally, for journalists, speaking as a non-journalist who kind of wants to be a journalist or has always dreamed of becoming a journalist at one point, step back and realize how special what you're doing is. Because when I write a 10,000 word article, nobody reads it. That's what academics do. But journalists, you're able to connect immediately with an audience. And that kind of immediate connection, that capacity to write the daily news, to tell the story of the country on a daily basis, iilan lang yung kayang gumawa niyan. And I think when you step back and realize how special that is, then maybe, parang the embers will ignite.
Very well said, guys. Thank you so much. Admit that we are all special here on this table, journalists and non-journalists alike. Thank you so much. Back to you, Margie and Jules.
All right. Thank you so much to our executive editor, Glenda Gloria, for leading our first panel. And thanks to our panelists too.
Trust Ma'am Marites to bring unrequited love and romance into the picture.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Ayan, so once again, to our audience, this is just the first of our 3 panel discussions tonight. So mas makikilala pa natin ng malalim ang Rappler on journalism, community, and technology.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah. So before we move on for a little reminiscing, I'd like to call on Mr. Manny Ayala. He is our first believer. We like to call him our first believer, one who has stayed with us in good times and bad. So a former probe reporter who became a banker and internet entrepreneur, Manny was the founding chairman of the board of Rappler. So we owe a lot to him, and we're so glad that he's here to share his memories with us. Manny, pasok.
Wow, I can't believe it's been 10 years.
Yes. Tell us about the first years.
Well, in the very first year, I didn't know how to use Twitter. I had no white hair, and I certainly had no criminal cases. So maraming nangyari in those 10 years. But maybe a little bit about the at least part of the origin story, right? At least the part where I intersected with Maria, because as you said, Maria and I had worked together in Probe in the late 80s. Oh my gosh, Maria, late 80s. And after I left and went on to do other things, every now and then we'd talk and say, hey, we should do something together. We should do something together. And it finally, an opportunity finally came about in 2011, right? So in 2011, I had just started a venture builder called Hatch, right? So what we were trying to do was create digital companies that had impact. And I discovered that Maria was leaving ABS. So immediately I called her and said, Maria, what do you want to do? Come on, usap tayo, right? We've been wanting to do something. Let's go and do something. So I still remember I think we had coffee in the UCC next to Maria's apartment. I said, so Maria, game, what do you want to do? And she said, well, I want to disrupt the news industry. I said, how? By combining journalism with technology, with community, right? So think about boto mo ipatrol mo, but on steroids. Now, this time using social media. I said, wow, that sounds really cool. I'm in, right? What do you want me to do? So she said, help us find money and help us find tech, right? Which is what I spent probably the first year trying to do, right? It's really trying to get like-minded investors, and shout out to our investors who, to a person, have stayed with us through thick and thin, right? Walang nagfold, right? So we got a bunch of great investors and we got a really good tech team to build at least the first iteration of Rappler, right? Led by Rob Locke. Rob, I don't know if you're there, but if you're there in the audience, your fingerprints are all over this thing. So that was the that was the beginning for me, Marge.
Okay, so hi Manny, I'm Jules. So thank you so much for sharing with us how it went 10 years ago. So now 10 years down, we have a new decade already for Rappler. What's your vision as part of the board? No, what's your vision for Rappler with your former directors? Your vision for Rappler for the next decade?
This is you might think this is a bit of a cop out, right? But our vision, honestly, is the vision of the editorial team, right? It's not the other way around there, right? So we are here to help the team, and that was not only a social contract, but the legal contract from day one, which is we're going to be a different kind of media entity, right? This is not going to be owner-led. It's going to be journalist-led. Well, it just so happened that the journalist also owned a big piece of it, but this is going to be unlike anything that existed before. So in a way, it was like the Universal Artists, right? But for journalism. I don't know if you remember UA, but that was a studio where in the beginning the whole vision was, well, it's going to be of, by, and for the artists, right? Not the money guys. So I don't know if that's a cop out, but really we defer to Maria and the Manangs really to set the course. Now, obviously, I'm very excited about what we've accomplished and where we're going. I do agree with the rest that we, not just the Philippines, but the world, finds itself in a bit of an existential moment, right? Where how the heck can we be, talking about things that are not factual and presenting them as factual, right? So to me, the fight goes on, right? The fight goes on. How we get there, right? We can be helpful to the team, but in the end, it's the vision of Maria and the Manangs that we try to support.
Yeah, and over the years, like they've really led us through the toughest times. And I think my takeaway from the past, I've been with Rappler for the past almost 9 years, and my takeaway is really how much power and how much agency every single Rappler has been given from the very beginning. Like it really feels like we can really speak our minds and really help shape the company into what it is.
And that was the deal from day one, right?
Yeah.
We weren't gonna tell the journalists what to write and how to do it.
Yeah.
We weren't gonna say, don't say this, don't say that.
Right. And we couldn't have done it without you, Manny. So thank you so much.
I'm just one of the asungots out there in the shadows.
Okay, so thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
I just want to add one thing.
Go ahead.
Which is, of course, I'm super proud of what all of you have done, right? This is built on the back of everyone's hard work and everyone's courage. Now, in the course of doing our job, I think so often we're seen to be enemies, right? By many, because we write this or we write that. But I like to think we have no enemies, right? In fact, we only have a friend, right? That friend being the truth. That's all we're interested in, right? Is the truth. But I think, if people insist that they are enemies, I would just have us think about this quote from Winston Churchill, okay? I love this quote. He says, "You have enemies? Good. That means you've stood up for something sometime in your life," right? And so I'm just so proud of what you guys have done. I'm so proud of what Rappler stands for. And I'm so proud that you've all stood up for the truth and the good in the face of so much pressure and so many attacks. So guys, all of you on this 10th year anniversary, thank you all for holding the line. Mabuhay kayo.
Yay, thank you so much. And thank you for holding the line with us, Manny.
All right. Thank you so much. That was Manny Ayala once again. Okay, so friends, before we move forward in the program, let's take a break once again with a performance from a band that is actually an important part of our celebration because one of the members of the band, Jim Bacaro, is also the co-founder of the online content creator and shirt brand Linya Linya. Actually, nakalabas na yung post natin dito, Hold the Linya Linya with us. Okay, hold the linya, di ba? So for our anniversary, we did a partnership with them to produce our anniversary shirt which will be available very soon. So abangan niyo po yan.
Yes.
All right, so wag na natin patagalin pa, Margie. Let's all watch Cheats.
Cheats.
Right, maraming salamat, Cheats, for joining us for our 10th year anniversary. And once again, of course, Margie, we remind everyone, all our guests here on Zoom and those who are watching on social media to please use our official hashtag for tonight. That is a decade of courage. Okay, Margie, we go back to our discussions. Now, technology naman tayo. Technology has been a major factor in Rappler's journey. As the first completely online newsroom in the country, tech truly enabled the distribution of our stories. And syempre, social media in particular was a driving force in shaping what Rappler is today.
Yeah, so this is my favorite part of the program. I'd like to call on my former teammates from the social media team, now called the digital communications team, Kay Cabal and CJ Maglunog. Woo! Yay! Pasok Kay and CJ.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi,
Kay,
happy anniversary.
Hello.
Happy anniversary, Rappler.
Kay
Happy
is the head of
birthday.
Happy birthday. Kay is the head of digital communications, and CJ is our, well, what we call our secret weapon. She's the yeah. How would you call your position, CJ? I always forget.
It's content strategist.
Content strategist.
Yes.
So she takes care of our SEO of our search. Like she's amazing and she's helped us grow in traffic through the years. So thank you CJ and Kay. Before we get to the next discussion, I just like to like tell our viewers right now how different the landscape was on social media between then and now. Like you've been with me and the social media team for all these years, and we've really seen the stark difference between how, for example, our trolls were pre-Duterte and post-Duterte. Like, di ba yung trolls natin dati, Kay, like, what do you remember of our trolls from before 2016?
Yeah, actually, I joined Rappler in 2014, fresh out of college.
Yeah.
And I see our former boss nandito sa chat. Hi, Stacy. We'll see her later sa panel. But I really remember sa early years ko here sa Rappler. I remember we were so worried every time may mga small typos kasi everybody will get back at us talaga for those tiniest little things. And sometimes when we have Chris Aquino stories, automatic na may konting kaba kasi sasabihin na naman sa atin sa comment section, wala na bang ibang balita, Rappler? It's always Chris Aquino, ganyan. Even though we know that she's a newsmaker, diba? So there's really a big difference dun sa trolls that we were dealing with before 2016. And then we saw a change talaga drastically na after nung presidential elections na yun. We all shifted from those yung mga fun executions.
Yeah.
We were parang biglang diba on the offensive, ganyan.
Yeah.
We were defending ourselves, we were defending our company from all those attacks. So yun, parang through the years parang sabay natin nag-grow tayo dito sa Rappler. Diba? With all those differences sa social media landscape.
Yeah, I remember like yun nga, parang before 2016, like sobrang babaw ng mga fears natin.
Correct.
Na, yeah.
Yes.
Diba? Parang, oh my God, may Chris Aquino story. Papatayin tayo ng mga tao.
Yes,
Or,
so remember our yung mga April Fool's Day prank.
Yeah,
Diba? We can back then.
Yes. CJ, tell us about those gimmick videos that we used to do.
I entered Rappler 2015, and then yung first execution ko with you guys was yung April pranks natin. Na Rappler is going print. So ang dami nating time. Lumabas tayo sa Antel, as in shoot tayo and everything. And then we had so much time, and then yung Thank You Bes na had a life of its own, yung isang character doon, si Francesca May. Hi, Kevin. Kevin, nandyan ka ba? Kalala mo? Si Francesca May, everybody related to her. Sobrang fictional siya. Pero everybody related to her. Ganun. And the response was good. And then, thank you, teacher. And ang dami pa nating time gumawa ng albums. Yun yung one thing that really stood out to me. Pre 2016, but then after 2016, besides dun sa we had the Courage On and No Place for Hate. Remember?
Place for Hate. Yeah,
yes,
campaigns.
and I think the attacks sa atin nun were also character assassinations. Like every report na lumabas natin nun, in-depth man or straight news, biglang merong
aawayin yung reporter.
And they'll dig something out about that reporter, and they're
So
gonna make
sobrang
it
babaw
viral.
lang, oo,
Yeah,
like
and hindi naman
nothing.
totoo.
Oo.
So yun yung what I can really say after 2016 until now,
Yeah,
especially
now.
elections and the sheer number.
Yeah.
So I can't, yung sheer number niya is ang dami. Like ngayon, every time we go live, 'di ba?
The
Especially nung
attacks,
election.
yeah.
I'm actually,
Sunod-sunod.
naka-duty ako ngayon cleaning up the trolls.
Oh my
Ganun
God,
yung
sorry, Kay.
level.
Ayun. So thank you, Kay,
Yeah.
for your dedication and for coming on kahit na nagpo-fight ka ng trolls right now. Yun. So, yan yung takeaway ko talaga from the digital communications team is we had things were so light and fun in the beginning, but even though a lot of bad stuff happened in 2016 onwards, we were able to adapt quickly. I think that was that really showed our strength over the years. That even though we entered that department with other ideas in mind, like when sorry, I'm gonna use my French. When shit hit the fan,
yes,
we were still able to handle all those trolls, and we're able to create what do you call this, a system for fighting them. And now I think we've reached a point when we're hitting our stride, and we're knowing how to we're knowing how we know how to handle them now, and to move back into our fun and more palaban na Rappler.
Yeah. And Margie, ikaw yung, di ba, nag-handle ng engagement nun for, I think,
Yeah.
one year, di ba?
Yeah.
So parang out of all of us, ikaw yung talagang frontline person na, okay,
Yeah, ako yung
I'll
sumasagot
start
sa mga trolls.
You'll start your day, okay.
Yeah,
So
like-
so that was...
Yeah, it was, I'd start every day with looking at all the hate that's been spewed at us. And yeah, it helped build character. Let's just say. Ayun. So thank you so much, CJ and Kay. Thank you. Thank you.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Happy
Happy
Anne.
birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you so much, CJ and Kay, once again. And of course, no, Margie, we remember when Rappler started a decade ago, we were also hopeful na itong technology can do what technology can do,
yeah.
and how it can drive positive change. But of course, ngayon, we all know what happened, di ba? How that took a turn for the worst. So we are now at a crossroads and there's no turning back. Kaya naman, the main question is, di ba, how do we move forward from the mess online? Para matulungan tayo na alamin to, we have our tech panel right now that will take a look at the future on news online. To moderate this panel, let's call in our tech editor, Jello Gonzalez. Jello, over to you.
Hi everyone, and thank you, Jules and Margie. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank also our social media team. Sila talaga yung frontliners natin, and sila yung mga masters of bardagulan, kumbaga, laban sa mga trolls, which have been hounding us for many years now. So technology truly has been a pillar for Rappler, and over the past decade, we've seen and experienced firsthand just how it could be a crucial tool for social good. But on the other hand, it's also a potent weapon shaking up societies in not so good ways. So how do we accentuate the good and rein in the bad? Our panel today will help us navigate this maze and suggest ways to correct its course, especially as it relates to the online news industry. We have Chai Hofilenia, the managing editor of Rappler, Julie Posetti, the Global Director of Research for the International Center for Journalists, and Irene J. Liu, the lead for Google News Lab. Okay, so we've heard from our social media team their experiences fighting off the trolls, but Ms. Chai, so 10 years, it's quite a long time, especially in the world of technology where everything moves at such a rapid pace. But now, can you take us back to 10 years ago, walk us through the kind of the milieu then and the tech tools that Rappler took advantage of, like the smartphone and then the then emerging social media platforms. From a journalist perspective, was there a eureka moment at the time that convinced the team that these tools could confidently stand side by side with the established formats of print and TV? Shai.
Yeah.
Hi, Jello. Hi, Irene, and hi, Julie. I'll just take you back a bit. 10 years ago when we started, I remember very clearly, we had training, multimedia training, it was called then, for our reporters. And it was held in a room in UP. And we had a trainer then, if you remember, Natasha was there, Patricia was there, the early reporters, Carmela. And supposedly the vision was to be able to be mobile journalists, mojos. And in contrast to television, who would have, a crew of 3. There would be a reporter, there would be a lightsman, a cameraman who would double as a driver. In our case, we said, no, we'll do it differently. We'll just have a one-person team with, and that reporter would have a mobile phone, and that's it. And the reporters would go out in the field, and as Maria narrated earlier, they were teased in the field. They were looked at with derision that, how can you be serious journalists when what you have it's a small phone, a mobile phone, when you're supposed to have, this huge cameras. But that was really the secret weapon. The mobile phone allowed for mobility, agility, and I guess most of all, speed. And at that time, we also were active on social media. We were on Twitter and we were on Facebook. So reporters then were expected to multitask. You're not just supposed to be writing, you're supposed to be also tweeting and posting on Facebook, doing your video, editing video on the mobile phone, and even writing on the mobile phone if needed. So we were able to do that. And then I remember also we were experimenting. We did this in the apartment of Maria. We were saying, okay, let's try doing a live stream, a live show on social media. And we did this on Facebook. And I remember very distinctly doing this with Voltaire. Our first interview was Alodia Goseng Fiao. And this was supposed to be about, because Alodia then was a cosplayer, so we thought it would be a good way also of drawing in a very, very young audience. And then we also tried an interview with Ambassador Severino, the father of Howie, and he was based then in Singapore. And it was all really a period of experimentation and discovery and multitasking. So we saw the potential of the mobile phone. We saw the potential of social media, and especially because at the time the Arab Spring was a big thing. It was a big issue then. So we said, social media holds a lot of promise in terms of democratization and in terms of mobilizing communities. And this is also why we had Agos, and Voltaire mentioned that also earlier. So social media allowed us to work with government. Unfortunately, that partnership, the Agos partnership was cut. So the idea, the vision also was to help in disaster preparedness and disaster relief, and to partner with government, NGOs, and civil society. So it held a lot of promise. And what we were not sure, but it eventually happened. No? There was really a lot of technological disruption that Rappler caused. And years later, all these other media entities also start doing the same thing. Now everyone is using a mobile phone. It's already a common tool, and I'd like to say that Rappler started it.
Okay, what were you saying to maybe some of the reporters then were complaining, oh, they're teasing us because we're using mobile phones? What were those conversations like back then?
Oh, gosh.
Don't mind them.
Yeah, the reporters, of course, were complaining because they either came from television, came from print, or had no experience in journalism. So you had those three factors, and of course, young, in their 20s, 20-somethings, very, very young reporters. So the good thing was they were willing to experiment. But the other thing, of course, was they would complain. You're expecting too much from us. You want us to write, you want us to do video, you want us to edit video, you want us to tweet. Anong gagawin namin? Ano unahin? But eventually, they learned it. And became very, very good at it. And up to now, the current reporters that we have, they're probably one of the best. They can do all of those things and still do investigative stories, in-depth stories every week. So Rappler really has the best.
Would you have more Volt stories to share?
Technology has enabled that, I would say.
Okay. So Irene and Julie, from your corners of the globe, would you have similar experiences or realizations about digital media at the time?
I suppose.
I guess
Okay. Irene, who do you want?
No, go ahead, Julie.
Okay. And New York, it's fine. I'm just, first of all, I just want to say how inspiring this is, joining from Oxford in the UK, one of the world's most significant examples of innovative responses to combined existential crises in the news business is Rappler in Manila, in the Philippines. And I think that's a really important point to highlight in thinking about the digital future, because the ability to respond to digital threats, to threats that include online violence, viral disinformation, all of the major threats really confronting journalism today, both of which are tied up with trust and business models. I think Rappler really does give us insights into how across the spectrum, independent, critical, public interest journalism can still be produced even in the most adverse conditions. And we have to acknowledge the function of technology and particularly big tech in being a facilitator of these crises, but also for me, this trajectory of a news organization that was literally born on Facebook, as a Facebook page that has been acknowledged with a Nobel Peace Prize 10 years later, or 11 years later, if the Facebook page, I think, started a year before Rappler's site was launched. But this Nobel Peace Prize acknowledges, in part, Maria's leadership, the Manung's vision, but also Rappler's continued willingness and ability to hold big tech accountable for what has happened since, especially Facebook and holding Facebook's feet to the fire. So I think this teaches us something really important about the ways in which we as a community of journalists, but also more broadly as democracies, thinking about the function of a free and independent media in our societies, need to understand the evolution of digital journalism as something that is not just about engaging with new technologies, but really harnessing technology and being innovative, even in terms of trying to develop independent technological responses to the crisis, which is something, or the crises, which is something that Rappler has really led on and is continuing to experiment with. So there is so much to celebrate, I think, at the same time as really using this as an opportunity to pause and look at the ways that Rappler has responded at each step of the digital evolution of journalism over the past 10 years. And I first encountered Rappler way back in, I think, 2012 or 2013, as a journalist and a researcher looking at journalism innovation and engaged audiences. And looking at the way social media could be transformative in terms of journalism's evolution. And particularly what has just been highlighted in this panel and previously, the function of community building through social media. And, you know, as Maria would say, we were so naive. We believed that, you know, social media was just this thing with kind of, you know, unquenchable capacity for social good when it came to journalism's function in community building. And since then, of course, you know, we have had to face reality and recognize that our role is to deepen our ties with communities. Sometimes that can occur through social media, but part of the process has to be, you know, putting on flak jackets to defend ourselves against the assaults that, you know, are waged on critical independent journalism via those platforms, organized, orchestrated, and just you know, a product of increasingly toxic online communities, unfortunately. So part of the solution, of course, is to become kind of a news organization that is able to recognize the value of niche communities and to try to build, you know, deeper and stronger and narrower ties with those communities, rather than thinking about trying to simply maximize audience numbers at scale, you know. And I think Rappler has been uniquely positioned because of the way it began with trying to affect social change and thinking about the value of audiences, not just as clickers, but as you know, as members of a community that this public interest journalism outlet was designed to serve in a networked way. So as you can tell, I'm thrilled that you've managed to survive this 10 years. There were times over the last 5 years that 5 going on 6 years that I was extremely concerned, as everybody was, that Rappler could not survive this you know, coordinated assault, which is being, you know, led by the state in the Philippines, but enabled in so many ways by technology. And yet here you are, still using technology to help unite this global celebration, which is phenomenal to see and utterly inspiring. So I'll leave my opening rant there, but thank you so much for having me to be part of this amazing celebration.
Okay, thanks, Julie. So Irene, you were with Reuters before you joined Google, and you were leading the push for digital back then. Can you tell us about this, you know, from this unique point of view?
Sure. And first, I'm going to start by apologizing because the skies have opened up here in Singapore. And so there's a lot of thunder. So I really hope that you'll actually be able to hear me. Yeah, first of all, I just wanted to say congratulations to everyone on the Rappler team and, of course, Maria, for this incredible achievement. 10 years. I don't think you can call yourself a startup anymore after 10 years, and all of the work and all of the many achievements and the incredible coverage in journalism that has been committed over this past decade. So it is truly an honor to be here and to hear everyone's stories. I remember seeing a presentation about Rappler in 2013 in Malaysia, and it just, at that time, it sounded so novel and so innovative, and to now see it mainstream is and a legacy and an institution in the Philippines and beyond is just so thrilling to see. I'll get to your question, Yellow, in about kind of Reuters and technology, because I think that it relates to why I think Rappler itself has become such a model, right? I mean, the challenge of changing culture in a legacy news organization is a massive challenge, right? Because there is just so much inertia in how things are done, particularly if there's nothing wrong, nothing's broken, right? You know, the news still comes out, there's still people reading it. You know, you can see perhaps trends that are concerning, but they're not in front of you. And in the kind of the daily, you know, feeding of the beast that is journalism, it can be very, very challenging to take a moment to stop and say, okay, we need to not only think about today's deadlines and the next headlines, we need to think about a year from now, 5 years now, 10 years from now. And how do we engage these technologies that we are confronted with at this moment that will probably be irrelevant in 10 years, right? We will have to continuously keep evolving. And I think that my experience having worked at a small local newspaper in upstate New York covering politics, working at the South China Morning Post, which is a over 115-year-old newspaper, and then of course at Reuters, specifically focused on digital and on projects that we're trying to focus on how you can use data, how you can use journalism packaged in new ways and create immersive storytelling that not only fulfills the need for news and information today in this moment, but can actually last, is something that I think is a challenge that we're all still grappling with. And I think that, as we talk about technology, the thing that strikes me and that I continuously like to emphasize to my colleagues within Google is that technology is a tool. At the core of journalism is still the work. It's holding power to account. It's doing the shoe leather journalism. You can learn you can learn how to program, you can learn all kinds of tools, but if you can't pick up the phone and actually pick up a phone and call people, or when confronted with somebody who is in power, ask them that hard question, then the fanciest tools don't matter. And I think that what has been really wonderful about Rappler's story, and also others in the region like Malaysia Kini and Tempo, is that the journalism at the core is there. What these organizations have done has been to articulate their value proposition and their values, what the organization stands for, what their standards are, and really almost like build a brand around that so that those who are consuming the content feel invested in the work and in the mission. We all hear about studies about Gen Z and how they're all, Gen Z is really, really focused on using their purchasing power for values, expressing themselves and their identity through what they believe in. But I don't think it's just exclusive to the youngest generation. I think that this is the case for a lot of us, and so it's been really inspiring to see how Rappler has done this. I felt very vindicated when, I should say, I felt very happy to share that there's a column that Ben Smith did in the New York Times about how media needs to be learning lessons from the Rapplers and Malaysia Kinis of the world, and I sent that very happily to our global organization within Google News, because I think it's really important for people to realize that the innovation is coming from this region, and in the face, not only innovation, but in the face of incredible challenges to press freedom, incredible courage in the reporting. And so, I'm just so thrilled to be able to be here to celebrate with you all. So congratulations.
Okay. Thanks, Irene. So the tech tools, they're going to change, the platforms, they're going to change, but it's the core values. It's the journalism at the core of the things that we do. To try, what's on your wish list? Since we're in this age of disinformation and trolls for quite a few years now, what's on your wish list?
Part of my wish list, I guess, in so far as social media platforms is concerned, is that number one, that still news would be given a priority, news would be given higher visibility, and then second, also, because there's a proliferation really of disinformation, hateful and threatening posts and content on social media. And of course, we do fact checking and all that. Sometimes it feels like it's a very futile exercise, because you fact check something, you report it, and then it's taken down, and then there's a reincarnation and another account is created, and it does the same thing all over again. I don't know how to stop that. I don't know whether it's worth doing this cycle of fact checking. But then if we don't do it, then you can also imagine what will happen to social media. And then third, hopefully there could be a way of identifying accounts that do this, that have this particular track record of spreading lies and evil. And maybe hopefully also down the line, there could be a recognition of responsible and good media. As Irene said, in the end, you go back to the core values and core skills of journalism. If you're very good at what you do, you verify, you're able to report verified and solid information, then hopefully readers and even government officials are able to recognize it. And maybe at some point, a few years from now in the Philippines, hopefully people would be willing to pay and subscribe, pay for quality journalism. That's part of the dream. Although I know the paid subscription model is untested and maybe it's not going to work, but that's part of the dream, that people have a stake in good journalism.
Okay, thanks, Chai. So we have like 3 minutes left. I'd just like to get the last statements from Irene and Julie before we end this panel. Irene?
Sure. I mean, I think that this conversation and all the reminiscing is so wonderful, because I think it speaks to just the passion of all the members. That the fact that you have so many alumni who have attended and who are telling their stories, I think speaks to the power of, you know, the Rappler's mission. And I really hope that not only does it continue, that Rappler will be able to continue to provide leadership, hopefully with this platform and the Nobel Peace Prize as well, to the rest of the world, and an inspiration. You know, at Google, we really do want to support news organizations. We are always looking for case studies and best practices to share with the broader community. I can say that we've definitely shared wanted to help highlight Rappler's amazing work over the past years, and not only in the journalism and the courageous reporting that, you know, in the face of, you know, the threats to press freedom and to the threats to the journalists, but also on the innovation of the business, in the business side and on the technology side. And, you know, we're just hopeful that we can continue to partner and work with you all to, you know, build the future of journalism, because certainly you all are at the forefront, and it's just thrilling to see and be a part of it as well. Thank you.
And from my side, since 2013, I've been studying the evolution of Rappler. And as I said before, it's gone from a story of extraordinary social media-based innovation, but mission-driven journalism, to one which is very much refocused on truth-telling and accountability reporting, public interest journalism that is also able to develop in a way that it kind of is decoupling from big tech in a way. So as much as you have engagement with, Rappler has engagement with Google and with Facebook, it has also driven a business model renovation that is not tech-led, but tech-empowered. And that's coming from in-house innovation. It's not through partnerships with big tech. And I think those are the lessons that we need to emphasize, because survival in the face of these, you know, combined existential crises and this extraordinary 10 years is also dependent on the ability to constantly innovate and constantly evolve, but not in a way that is being led by the nose by technology or by big tech, but rather by being focused on communities, focused on responses to the threats to those communities, which is what public interest journalism is all about. And I think, as I've been writing since 2013, Rappler really exemplifies that model. And it's a model that has shone a light from east to west, instead of constantly highlighting Western news outlets, big Western news outlets, as kind of evidence of what the future of journalism looks like. I have, you know, for nearly a decade said Rappler in the Philippines is the one to watch. And here you are, you know, standing up to authoritarian regimes and big tech, and doing so in a way that still allows you to serve your communities, and to learn from all of these threats, I think is amazing. And I now work for a US-based international organization that supports journalism, and I also support the values of the Independent Fund for Public Interest Media that Maria is aligned with. And I think one of the key things that we can achieve is to be able to harness the generosity of donors in a way that puts barriers between the donors and the news organizations, which will serve trust. And I do think that we therefore need to focus on this decoupling from big tech, but filtering those funds in a way that allow both the actual production of independent journalism into the future, and also the appearance of independence that goes with that. So here's to another 10, 20, 30 years of courageous, innovative, and fun, which is, put the fun back into Rappler. I think somebody posted on the message board earlier. I think Rappler still has plenty of fun, but it would be nice to be able to celebrate this, not just once every 10 years.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Definitely, to 10 more years, to 20 more years, to 30 more years, and beyond. Thank you, Irene and Julie, for joining our celebration tonight. Thanks for taking the time for gracing us with your presence. And with that, I will turn you back to Jules and Margie.
All right. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Jella.
Thank
Jella, and our
you.
panelists. And there you have it, guys. That's the end of our 3 panels. So we look forward to a braver and stronger Rappler with a community that is just as courageous.
Correct. So now, Margie, as we move forward to our third segment, which will feature, of course, the third pillar community, before that, we'll be watching a special performance from Phil-Am rapper Ruby Ibarra. So definitely some of you will recognize her voice as one behind the song 1,000 Cuts, okay, which was used in the award-winning documentary of the same title.
Okay, so it was actually in the Rappler office that Ruby Ibarra and Ramona Diaz, the director of the 1,000 Cuts, first met where Ramona asked Ruby to do the song for the film. So we'd actually like to call on Ramona here to talk a little bit with us about her experience of filming in the Rappler office in Estancia. Ramona,
Hi, you
here?
Guys.
Hi,
Yes.
Ramona. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So we'd like to hear about your experience, like filming us in the Rappler office. Like you've been with us for about, I think, like a year and a half or something like that.
Year and a half, 2 years, something like that.
So
it never
what were
ended.
What were the most memorable times you had in the office?
Yeah, but before I start, congratulations to everyone. Gosh, 10 years, right? You survived, and not only survived, you survived with a bang. So congratulations on 10 years. And also, I don't think I've ever thanked Rappler as a whole, but thank you for letting us into your lives at such a make or break moment, at such an existential moment for Rappler. You let us into your lives, and we were able to capture some really key events in Rappler, in the sort of in the narrative, in Rappler's narrative. So thank you for that, for the trust. But there were so many. I stumbled into Rappler, really. Rappler was not. I didn't think I was going to make a film about Rappler, but I'm always drawn, I think, to the right story. And when I finally met Maria, and that's another long story, but when I finally met Maria and I entered into that space in Estancia, and everyone was calling it this scrappy Rappler, right? But you enter into the space and you're like, this is not scrappy. This is a really cool space. And then you meet Maria, and then you find out the stories, and I knew I was in the right space, right? Like everyone, like good journalists, I guess, I do my homework. So when I realized, this is a story, I asked everyone I do my homework. I asked people about Rappler. I asked my deep network in the Philippines about Rappler, and certainly you guys had avid fans. You also had not so avid fans, right? But the one thing that was really key was that no one was indifferent to Rappler.
Right.
Because indifference is the death knell, right?
Yeah.
And that really drew me, because I think like Manny said, if the idea was to disrupt, then you're gonna break a few eggs if you disrupt, and behaving sometimes to behave badly is good because then you really disrupt the status quo, and that's what you have to do, uh, especially in a place like the Philippines. So that's what drew me really to Rappler and the Rappler story. There were singular moments in filming Rappler. I mean, traveling with Pia Ranada, who to the south and still doing her job when she was disallowed into spaces, right? Actually, the gosh, am I allowed to say the PSG like telling her she wasn't allowed into the rallies when every other journalist was allowed, and yet she did her thing. She just did her thing. And to see that was really something. It's indelible. I'll never forget that. And she allowed us to follow her too. While she was really under siege. And then going with Rambo to this, to Tondo, right? And riding on bikes with him. And my cinematographer, Gabriel, like being behind him with a small camera. And he's like, yeah, sure, let's go. And I think it goes to Rambo's ability to gain the trust of the police, because they also welcomed us in, because Rambo said, hey, they're cool. They're with me. And we're like, yeah, we're with him. And they were like, sure, come on board. And that goes to Rambo's ability, I think, to gain the trust of the people he covers. And that's so key. So there's so many. I mean, we started the ride really with Maria getting arrested. And suddenly I find myself in that space and I'm filming with an iPhone because my crew wasn't in yet. And then it was like this crazy ride. And, if you're going to go down a rabbit hole with someone, then the Rapplers were the best ones to go down the rabbit hole. So again, thank you so much. At first, my first impression, of course, was youth and shyness, and then you go drinking with some of you, and you're like, okay, this is the right people. So really classy act. So thank you for letting us into your lives.
Thank you. And thank you, Ramona, for the wonderful film you created. And we're so happy to have been part of it.
Yeah,
thank
for
you.
Sure. My pleasure.
Okay, guys. Ramona actually mentioned like the scrappiness of Rappler. I think if she were able to see our office before the Estancia office, we had offices in Quezon City and in Antel in Ortigas. Well, I was able to go to the Antel one, and it's a good office, but it was very small. So I think that was the scrappy part, because like people were literally fighting for chairs. So yeah. All right. Thanks, Ramona. And I would like to apologize to everyone because we actually have one more. We have one more panel. I misspoke. Medyo naduling ako. I'm so sorry. I think it's the Omicron getting to me.
Oh no.
Kidding lang. I think I'm okay.
Okay, so thank you once again to Ramona Diaz. So now, as promised, it's all sit tight and enjoy this performance from Ruby Ibarra and the Balikbayans.
Go, Ruby.
Peace, y'all. My name is Ruby Ibarra, and I want to send a very, very, very happy 10th anniversary to Rappler and a Happy New Year. Thank you so much. This song is called 1,000 Cuts, featuring my band, the Balikbayans. If I fall, I stand stand up, break these walls, I'll rise up. Even when I lose it, I'll always got my eyes up. They praying on my downfall, but I'll never give up. 1,000 cuts won't be enough to keep my fists in these cuffs. And I'm never breaking down when the odds against me. Brown girl, gold crown with the gods within me. Yeah, I was a flower that bloomed in a dark room. Flows like monsoons from the womb. When I write, move runes and resume. I grew to lie soon. Prayed to many moons and my wounds would not bloom. Or we from death bloom, so we hum you these tunes. And hope it sparks light like a night in mid-June. My heart's consumed by hate here. It's harder when you live fear. How can you see clear when you don't see you in the mirror? I lost too many peers. They seem to disappear, but they living through these words that I'm painting here. Tell me you'll remember me. I'm here to build a legacy. I got the ground moving under me. 1,000 cuts ain't never stopping me. And I swear I'm never giving up. Who I am and why I'm standing up. And I ain't ever need no ounce of luck to understand myself, cause that's enough. Yeah, that's enough. I can live 1,000 cuts. I can live 1,000 cuts. Then live a life just covering up. What would you die for? What do you live for? When it's resistance met with an uproar. I'm trying to love more. We've had enough war. Too many stones in our hands and these guns drawn. They try to press me till I stumble down, but not this time. I go 0 to 100 now. They'll never silence me, my voice will be denied. And I'm challenging the system, no it won't be televised. And I'll never compromise, cause I'm writing to survive. When the freedom ain't free, and so let's keep the hope alive. Yeah, I see it in me from the clouders to my killings. From the martyrs to the artists and the writers breaking ceilings. It's life in these lines with lives on front lines. Attest to these times so we question these minds. And never ever bite my tongue, that'll be the death. Everything I stand for, no it won't be any less. And P.S. Tell me you'll remember me. I'm here to build a legacy. I got the ground moving under me. 1,000 cuts ain't never stopping me. And I swear I'm never giving up. Who I am and why I'm standing up. And I ain't ever need no ounce of luck to understand myself, cause that's enough. Yeah, that's enough. I can live 1,000 cuts. I can live 1,000 cuts. Then live a life just covering up. And I swear I'm never giving up. Who I am and why I'm standing up. And I ain't ever need no ounce of luck to understand myself, cause that's enough. Yeah, that's enough. I can live 1,000 cuts. I can live 1,000 cuts. Then live a life just covering up. Break these walls, I'll rise up. Even when I lose it all, I always got my eyes up. They praying on my downfall, but I'll never give up. 1,000 cuts won't be enough to keep my fists in these cuffs.
Thank you so much
Thank
once
you,
again.
Ruby.
Ruby Ibarra and the Balikbayans. Okay, Margie, finally, this is the part of the program where we honor all of you, lahat kayo mga viewers natin that have made Rappler continue its journalism. Walang iba kundi ang ating community. We are so glad, yes, that all of you are able to join us online today to celebrate this momentous activity tonight.
Yeah, so when Rappler started, we always said that it was social media for social good. Like ilang beses na namin yung sinasabi over the years. So we saw how our stories were able to help typhoon survivors, for instance, or young kids who wanted to go to school. Natasha, if you're there, I'm sure you remember that pivotal story. And most recently, students who needed laptops. So through Rappler Civic Engagement Hour, Move PH, we listened to what communities around the world needed and used the power of online media to make things happen. So today we'll discuss how we can continue to build communities of action when we have a climate of disinformation, hate, and lies still with us today. So this panel will be moderated by my favorite boss, Stacy De Jesus, former head of community.
Hello everyone. Hi. Okay, so I'm so happy to be here. I left Rappler. When I left Rappler, it was just the pandemic started shortly after. So I haven't really talked to anyone. So this is the first time I'm talking to people again. I'm so happy to see Rapplers again. I'm so excited. And when you guys gave me the topic, it actually gave me nostalgia because this is a topic that we've been discussing since year one. Um, but before we start, good morning from where I am. Pa isa lang linya ng British accent because I'm here in the UK. And good evening to everyone watching in the Philippines. We're here to talk about the last of the three key pillars in Rappler. So we've heard the first panel talk about journalism. We've heard the second panel talk about technology. And now we talk about my favorite part, the communities. And I think this is what set Rappler apart from other news organizations because we really prioritized communities. But before we start, let me quickly, of course, introduce our panelists. I am joined today by Lenny Velasco, the Secretary General of the Dakila. Hello, Lenny.
Hi, hello everyone. Congratulations,
Hi.
Rappler.
And then, of course, Gemma Bagayawa Mendoza, the Head of Digital Strategy for Rappler.
Hello, Stacy, and hello, everybody.
Hi, and of course, this is the first time I'm getting the chance to meet him. Let's welcome again. He's actually my successor, the current head of community for Rappler, Jules Giyang. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Stacy. Yeah, it's nice to meet you too online.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Okay, so our topic again, using technology for social good. Gemma, we have been talking about this since year one. We've had like countless of summits, conferences, workshops, hackathons, particularly discussing what we can do with the community to benefit the communities where we exist with the power of technology. Please lay the context for all of us first. Why is community so important for Rappler, and how did we do it over the years, or how did we start doing it?
You know, Stacy, what I always say is the secret to why Rappler survived all these years, even throughout the attacks, was the fact that it has worked closely with communities on the ground. And it's the coverage. To begin with, it's the stories we tell. Diba? Like the mission of Rappler was really to tell the stories of communities on the ground, the concerns they have, what are the needs on the ground that are not being attended to, and that's something that we've tried to do over the years. But more so, we also wanted to work closely with different communities, groups on the ground, civil society groups on the ground, who have been working already from day one with these communities. And that's really one of the biggest things that sets Rappler apart, I think, because like we really through the years, since the first Social Good Summit, I think like every year Social Good Summit gets bigger and bigger. Always looking at that fusion, yung journalism, technology, and communities. Yun yung that was really the what we've always been trying to do.
Speaking of which, I'm so happy to have Len here because it's so important for us to involve our partners, activist organizations, movement organizations in these discussions, because we are a news organization, and to be fair, we don't know nothing, and then that's why we need them to push for our advocacies. Lenny, there are so many movements and organizations and campaigns now to combat what we're doing now, or what's happening now, disinformation, fear and hate, and maybe you can make it general as well, all the other advocacies and social issues that are being addressed. What best practices have activists tried over the years and are trying now that you think still works and you think we should be continuing to do moving forward?
Yeah, I remember just looking back, I remember as part of the social movement, we were so excited actually to witness how a media organization can actually marry the community aspect to journalism and tech. I'm happy actually that where Rappler is now, working closely with CSOs like us into activating and engaging communities. And just a shout out to the Courage on Coalition members who are now here. But one thing that we've learned in our experience as Dakila, we've been using creative resistance as our Trojan horse for dissent. We see creativity whether through arts, media, and popular culture. And this is something that has been done before in our history. We see it as a double-edged sword. Actually, it is our defense against threats and attacks, especially in this context we are now, to ensure our security and safety. It allows us to confront power and forward our social messages, but in a way that minimizes risk of being targeted. At the same time, it is an offense because the form itself, the form of expression itself, has really the potential to connect it to people. And I think that's what's needed, especially under this context, to connect to people at an emotional level and the ability to portray people in their full humanity towards hope that maybe our audiences can recognize our shared humanity. We see our role specifically as activists and specifically us as creatives in conveying social messages that actually inject and legitimize values and diversity of thought into our culture through the initiatives that we do that has broad public appeal. I think that's important right now. And the potential for distribution beyond our echo chambers so that we can reach and penetrate more communities.
I love that, particularly working together to minimize the impact of targeting, because that, of course, is something that resonates with me, who has been with the digital communications team. Jules, in particular, Rappler works with communities with the digital communications arm, formerly the social media, and the Move PH arm, our civic engagement arm. Now, how does Rappler now deal with building communities through this climate of fear and doubt?
Yeah, I think Stacy, yung important kasi ngayon, we accepted already the reality na ito na yun for the past 5 years, we've seen the attacks and everything. Pero, ang decision na ginawa ng Rappler is, we will push back. Diba? Hindi natin hahayaan lang natanggapin lahat ng mga attacks na to. And we also believe na hindi lang tayo yung mag-isa sa laban na to. That's why with the power of collaboration, we have created coalitions. As Ms. Lenny mentioned earlier, we have the Courage on Coalition and the PH Vote Coalitions. At least 150 organizations working together for the common goal. And what's interesting here, Stacy, is kahit na from different parts of the political spectrum, nanggagaling iba't ibang organizations, we have extracted kung ano yung pinaka common ground natin, which is very important na parang sige, isang tabi muna natin in the meantime kung nasan tayo sa political spectrum kasi sa hulit-huli demokrasya yung pinaglalaban natin. And yun yung pinaka-main goal natin, especially for the short term, which is the election. So we are really excited how we are converting our efforts online and seeing it, how it flesh out doon sa partnerships natin with the organization. So yun, Stacey, very interesting and exciting actually kung paano natin ma-implement itong Avengers Assemble na sinasabi ni Maria kanina.
It just makes sense, no? Na if we're all working together towards the same goal, why not work together naman? Gemma, in particular, when we talk about using tech for social good, it doesn't just involve technology. It involves the people in it. And over the years, we've seen so many, and ourselves personally, we've done so many innovation and new technology created under the intention of addressing social issues or making social impact. However, not a lot of them are still live up to this day. where do you think did it fall short? Was it the technology, or was there a lack of willingness for people to contribute or intervene in the technology, or maybe understanding of it? What was the problem, and how do you think we can address this moving forward?
Actually, Stacy, so since we're talking about the yesteryears, diba? Like
Yes.
why did, how did we start to begin with? Like go and why is it very important na to address the current problems, diba? So, I'll start with to begin with the time when we were so naive, and we really saw the like, we were so hopeful. I don't want to call it we're naive, but I wanted to say that we were hopeful then. We were very hopeful then. And why were we hopeful then? Because we saw that potential for technology actually to make people to help people work together. And we've seen quite a lot of examples of that. Those were the experimentations. We worked with different communities using social media. So when we're talking of technology, we're not just talking of technology that Rappler created, but technology that's out there that we're just maximizing. So social media was one of those technologies. And one very like I think memorable thing that we've really done over and over during ahead of typhoons, and when there's a typhoon that's about to strike, is yung when we all come together. We Rappler in its office, we would go on 24/7 duty. Remember that, and we were working with different partners online, and I remember there was even a time when we finally got a seat there at the OCD, and we were looking at like needs on the ground during disasters, working with private sector and so on, like relaying different needs on the ground. So technology can be used for good, and I still think it can be used for good. But right now, the shift in technology, this is the reason why we really need to address that shift, because and this problem with this information, because it's polluting that space that could otherwise help everybody work together. And there just needs to be rules, and that's the thing that we're addressing right now with research that we're doing on this information, with all the fact checking, with the efforts to tie everybody together, and we're so we can all work towards fixing this problem that's broken, these communication lines that are currently broken. I think that's very important right now, and so long as we all of us band together, which is what's starting to happen right now, we can get to that again, and we can get to a space when we're starting to talk again about the important things that matter, like how do you solve this pandemic, how do you make sure that the next disaster will not result in three-digit casualty rates again, which was not happening anymore before, diba? When people were working together. So that's really, I'm still hopeful. I'm still really hopeful.
Does it feel like hindi step back eh. Does it feel like nag-regress yung over the years? Kasi I believe we had like stronger partnerships with the government before, and with other I think with activist organizations, we still have those partnerships. However, do you think it has regressed over the years, like the connections because of the climate?
Basically what happened was that we were driven into echo chambers. We instead of working together, the differences were highlighted. The differences and not the communication lines, not the points of unity. And I think it's very important to get to that point again, where you have communication lines open, because societies cannot function without those bridges.
Okay.
And we need to build bridges. And I think it is still possible with technology. We're experimenting further. In fact, we're hoping in the next few months we'll have something out there that can be another experiment on this community building using technology.
Yeah, at kung may nakikinig sa atin na partner organizations or government and whatnot, we can all have different views on things. But yung kagaya nga ng sinabi ni Jules na we all have the same goal. So kung in terms of these things now, we question how can we work together for disaster risk reduction. This is something that we all can do together. And we can do this even if we have different views on things sometimes. So Lenny, in the past years, we've seen the perils and power of social media. How do you think we can leverage more the power of social media and the communities in it, that it overpowers the bad side of it?
I think, first of all, we, especially us in our civil society sector, we need to understand how social media as technology actually works. One of the highlights of our learning in our digital activism program is we need to understand that the digital landscape actually is an extension of the physical world. And everything that exists in the digital world, the player, the efforts, the conditions, echoes the physical and material realm. Whether that's authoritarianism, the widening social divide, the culture of violence and intolerance. So it's blended oppression and blended repression. It's basically the same war, only in a different battlefield. So thus, this entails a blended struggle and resistance as well. So if digital technology, as how we've seen it, amplifies the conditions in our society, whether it's human alienation, repression, or inequality, what it also gives us is it strengthened our human connection. And that, I think, is the leverage of the power of social media, that we really need to amplify our human connection by building and strengthening our communities, translating these relations not only online, but more importantly, offline as well. Because we see community building as very important. It's because communities actually hold the power, the collective power, to through their social capital, so that they could address society's political, economic, or socio-cultural injustices or inequalities. And this collective power is the one that we should harness actually. It's the force we need to actually wield and enable social change. So that's really how community building is important. And we're glad that Rappler is actually focusing your attention to building and engaging communities, especially at this point under the pandemic, where it's really a challenge now for civil society organizations like us to really organize and engage communities.
I'll just have my last question before we close because we don't have enough time. But for all of you, like, how do we do this community building moving forward from where you're sitting, from what you can do? How do we spread social good again, the message of it? How do we change the behavior and the mindset of people? Basically, how do we build communities? Maybe Jules can go first.
Yeah, siguro stage number 1, since we're building coalitions, no, we amplify the efforts of each other, di ba? Hindi dapat competition yung tingin natin sa bawat organization. Rather, makita natin na yung gains or yung strengths ng iba't ibang organizations, ito yung pagsamasamahin natin. So alisin na natin yung concept na mas marami kami or mas impactful yung ginagawa natin. So that's number 1. Number 2 is we go beyond our circles. 'Di ba? Kasi syempre when you're talking or when you're mobilizing your own network, parang you're preaching to the choir already. So the challenge right now is na manghamig pa tayo ng maraming mga tao, and by doing that na hindi dapat condescending agad yung approach natin, kasi we want more allies. That's the main goal. Hindi natin kailangan ng mas maraming kaaway ngayon. Kailangan natin ng mas maraming mas maraming mga kaalyansa sa lahat ng mga advocacies natin. And by doing that, gaya na sinabi ni Ms. Gemma kanina, we create bridges and not walls. Yun yung important ngayon, especially in the 2022 elections. Malaki yung at stake. It's our democracy. Sabi nga ni Maria before, it's do or die, May 9, do or die, di ba? Doon nakasalalay ko ano yung magiging future ng democracy natin. So ayun, that's a message to the communities out there, to organizations out there, na let's collaborate kasi marami pa tayong maaring magawa kung magtutulong-tulungan tayo.
Gemma?
Yeah. So yes, there's the need to collaborate. But the other part of it na ano to kasi this is taking off now from yes, there was a point when we were really hopeful and then very optimistic. But now that we're a little bit more knowledgeable of what's happening out there, the other realization is really this. While we work together, there needs to be rules. There needs to be rules and there needs to be accountability. And actually, that's the other thing that we're trying to build now, like looking at this space. It cannot be totally freely willing. There are things, there are limits, and some of those limits, my rights and where your rights begin, di ba? We cannot we cannot continue allowing people to harass other people and so on. So it's really important that it's a balance now. We're looking at the working closely together, empowering people, giving people voices, but at the same time, that needs to be within certain guidelines, within certain rules that people need to follow, and there needs to be accountability. And that applies to people, organizations, and tech.
I love that. Lenny?
Yeah, I think aside from bridging gaps, what is important is also that we need to rethink the way we do things, reimagine new approaches to actually resonate with the communities that we're trying to engage. Social good is such a vague, alien, and ideal concept to many, but we need to present it to a way that relates to the lived experience of our people, one that matters really to their livelihood, and lifestyles. And if we want advocacy for social good to urgently spread, it has to be understood at a gut level. I think that's one of the challenges for us.
Thank you, everyone. There are so many opportunities in technology, and in the same breath, there are so many social issues that need addressing. There are so many communities that need to be tapped. So it's a shout out from Rappler that we are continuing to have our arms open and to work with Rappler, because communities is such a big and important aspect for Rappler. But as Gemma said, there needs to be rules and accountability with it. It's so wonderful to hear from people who are not only committed to leveraging technology and to creating social impact, but also in involving people and communities with what they do. So thank you all for sharing that. Thank you for that spirit, and for reminding us that there is something we can actually do and something you can do as well with Rappler. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Stacey De Jesus. Enjoy the rest of the program. I turn you back now to Margie and Jules again.
Yay, salamat, Stacey. Okay, there you have it. And I promise this time it's for real. That was the end of all our panels. Pasensya na. So before we go on, I would like to give a shout out to the former Rapplers who are watching. So as we say, once a Rappler, always a Rappler. So hello to Camille Alemia, Abigail Abigan, Katie Suarez, Fritzy Rodriguez, Dominic God, JC Cotinga, Pat Evangelista, Patty Pasion, Taffy Santiago, and Yusuf Maromsar. If I missed anyone, I'm sorry. Thank you. Hello, everyone. So yeah,
Correct.
Jules.
Thank you so much once again to our former Rapplers. And now at this point, Margie, we would like to honor the people behind the stories, the videos, and the art that you see on our website and
Yes.
social media platforms.
Yeah, so it's our turn, guys. Some Rappler employees have been in the company since its early days, of course, and today we recognize them. To start us off, let us call on again our executive editor, Glenda Gloria.
Hello, everyone. It's me again. This is a very special part of the program. It's the first time that we're doing this, the Service Awards for Rapplers who have been with us for 5 years and more, as well as those who reached their 10th year in 2021. This is to pay tribute to their courage in the line of fire, to the long hours and passion they put in their work, but most of all, to their faith in what Rappler can do to make this world a better place. Back to you, Jules.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Glenda Gloria. So you heard it right. We will now recognize our service awardees. But before that, Margie, ano ba yung matatanggap ng ating mga service awardees?
They will all get a special jacket.
Bibigyan kayo ng jacket ng Rappler.
Bibigyan ng jacket. And it's a really nice jacket too. So for the 5-year awardees, they'll get a jacket that has this logo here. It says Rappler 10, and then it says 5 years of service. And then and so on and so forth. So if you're the 10-year anniversary, then the 10 years of service. So it's a really nice jacket. It looks like it can stand any kind of weather condition that journalists go through. So hindi lang siya parang hoodie lang. It looks like a really legit jacket that you can wear even to formal events. Yun. So it's really nice, guys.
All right. So simulan na natin, Margie. Let's now start recognizing our service awardees for 5 years. So let's begin with our awardees. We start with Lian Buwan.
Woo, Lian! Next is Bonds Magsambol.
Up next, we have Janina Malinis.
Then we have Jeff Digma.
And of course, you also have Jello Gonzalez.
All right, to speak on behalf of the 5-year awardees, we'd like to call on Lian Buwan with her 10-minute all too well speech special.
Thank you, Margie. I promise this would be under 10 minutes. I have to catch my breath. Thank you for choosing me to speak on behalf of the 5-year service awardees. Our batch came at a time when, Rappler was already Rappler. If you remember, Pia has already had that tussle with President Duterte in Davao City where she was calling him out on catcalling. And I remember watching that clip from my old newsroom and typing on Facebook that Pia Wurtzbach is not the only Queen Pia that I know. It's Pia Ranada, who was actually my former workmate. She sat in front of me in our old newsroom. So I sent my first feeler to Ma'am Glenda in 2015. I don't know if she remembers, in a mid-career crisis of sorts. But I didn't go to Rappler until after 2016 when we elected President Rodrigo Duterte. So after that, I quit media. I moved abroad because one, I no longer wanted to be a contractual media worker. Two, because President Duterte said from Davao that he wanted to kill journalism in this country. I was in the TOC of our old newsroom and I was watching the president address journalists like, you sons of bitches, kill journalism in this country, stop journalism. So I thought maybe it was time to say goodbye, at least for a few years or so. It turned out it was just 6 months because in those 6 months, the death toll from the drug war rose rapidly and the Supreme Court had given a hero's burial to a dictator. So I knew I needed to go back. And my first message was to an old friend, Paterno, who's now our news editor. And I asked if Rappler had a job opening. It was real this time, I said. And because I had watched Rappler grow, when UST, my alma mater, said it was at a loss on how to respond to online journalism when Miss Marites broke that story on CJ Corona's PhD. As a millennial, I was not at a loss, but I was very curious. So when Ma'am Glenda, Miss Gigi, and Ma'am Chai asked me, okay ba sa'yong mag-justice reporter? Pikit mata na lang akong umoo. Bahala na. I said maybe it would be exciting. So I started December 31, 2016 and was at Sandigan Bayan when the courts opened in 2017. I wanted to match what I thought was Rappler's journalism, quick and on the run. And that is true, but quickly my editors told me, slow down. Don't churn out stories like you're beating a quota. Because it turned out wala palang quota ang Rappler. Ma'am Glenda told me that she didn't care if all I had done for the day was chat and make friends. That's how you cultivate sources, Lian, she said. And that's the other part of Rappler's journalism. The one that I like, which is the slow, processed kind of journalism that is more concerned with building rather than breaking. Building knowledge, building empathy, and then building courage. So sobrang pag-build ng courage, na-build na rin yung courage naming mag-overdaldal at huwag nang magsulat. At yung courage na sumagot sa message ni Ma'am Chai Hofelenya ng on this, pero wala pa talaga kaming nasisimulan. That's real courage. For us staffers, Rappler built confidence too. Because Rappler is a place where veterans treat 20-somethings as their equals. The first time I met Ma'am Marites, all I wanted to do was have a picture with her or magpa-autograph ng Shadow of Doubt. But she was already talking to me about the Supreme Court and all these justices I didn't know. So nagpanic na lang ako inside and courage on. That culture did not always work in perfect rhythm. The setback of that culture was felt more outside of our newsroom, out in the field where if you're a Rappler, you're branded as different. And it's sometimes the bad or often the bad kind of different, yung over-eager, too much of everything. That's the reason why when people apply for Rappler, our question is always, are you sure? Under this government, that question, are you sure, had more profound meanings than before. It's, are you sure you want to be attacked? Are you sure you want to be kicked off a Viber group? In Rambo's case, kicked off 3 Viber groups in a span of 2 years. Are you sure you want to be excluded from mailing lists? Are you sure you want to have this job that is threatened every other month and anytime your company could be shut down? And every time that somebody says yes, then we get a little bit more courage. So if someone were to ask me now, are you still sure? My answer would be, no one is ever sure. Because after all, we live in uncertain times. But I know that with everything that Rappler has taught me, despite being branded as different, have made the last 5 years more meaningful than it would have ever been had I not sent that message to Paterno. So if Rappler gambled on me, then I would also gamble on Rappler. It is, after all, what brought me home. And so far, that has been the best decision of my life because it's been an honor being in the front lines with colleagues in Rappler and outside Rappler, doing what we can and doing what we should to protect journalism from those who try to kill it. So with my Gatorade, a toast to Rappler. Happy 1 decade. Here's to coming home.
All right. Thank you so much, Lian Buwan. Let's give our 5-year service awardees a virtual round of applause.
Yay. Thank you, Lian. So now we move on to the 5+ years of service, so 6 to 9 years of service.
All right, let's begin.
That's Noel Alega.
Next, we have Danny Espina.
Next, we have Acor, Hardcore, Arceo.
Next, we have Libby Pascual.
HR Queen, Libby Pascual. Yes, it's Eliza Arzabal.
Next, we have Jean Layson.
Oh my God, it's Mara Cepeda.
Up next, we have Don Kevin Hapal.
Yes. Sorry. Next, we have Aika Ray.
Next, we have CJ Maglunog.
Ate CJ.
Ate CJ.
Next, Andoy Adoria.
Next, we have M. Hidalgo.
Oh, Princess M. Next, we have Marga Deona.
Up next, we have Kay Cabal.
Yay, go Kay. The silent but deadly Nico Villarete.
Next, we have Jodes Gavilan.
Woo! Kakaibib. Next, Miss Mia Gonzalez.
Next, we have Jane Zaplan.
Go Zap. Next, Miss Josie, Jocelyn Custodio.
Up next, we have you, Margie De Leon.
Hello, thank you, thank you. Next, we have Naoki Mengwa.
Up next, we have Miriam Grace Go.
Oh, Miss Gigi. Next is Paeng, Rafi de Guzman. Bicycle, bicycle.
We also have G. Geronimo.
Oji. We have the punster, Michael Buesa.
Up next, we have Lian Jazul.
Zultan Jazul. And yay, it's Raisa Serafica, Liwai's mommy.
And we also have Fel Dalafu.
Yes, please give us money. And of course, Pia Ranada. Who else but Pia Ranada?
Next, we also have Victor Barreiro.
Go Vic. And we have Franz Hiko Lopez.
We also have Bea Kupin.
Woo. And of course, the Holy Father, Paterno Esmaquel.
All right. So at this point, friends, to deliver the acceptance speech on behalf of our 5+ years awardees, let's call in Kevin Hapal. Kev, go ahead.
Hello. Hi. Dinig naman ako na.
Yes.
Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm Don Kevin Hapal, head of data. So I've been in Rappler since 2015. So I've been with the organization for most of my adult life. What a lot of you don't know is that I've already been a big Rappler fan even before that. Kasi provinciano po ako. I went to UST Legazpi in Albay for college. And back then, I'd always tell my professors that I want to be in film or advertising. But they'd tell me I'd make a good journalist. And they tried to convince me by suddenly sending me to this random seminar in Ateneo de Naga. This was in 2013, and it was 3 hours of travel away from my school. So it was some seminar about social media and advocacy by a news organization I've never heard of. So reluctantly, I came without expectations, but of course with an open mind. The event was called #Move Bicol and Power to the People. And the theme of the seminar was supposedly how we can harness the power of social media to do good. Exactly the things that Stacey was talking about earlier in their panel. And in our case, they tried to connect it with Bicol's constant problem with brownouts, hence Power to the People. So that's where I first met Rappler there in Naga in 2013. And it was love at first sight. It wasn't the 100-employee company that it is now. Back then, there were just like a handful of them. And forgive me, this provinciano was only familiar with one of them then, Maria, who I vividly remember seeing sitting on the bleachers of that open air gymnasium in Naga. She was wearing her trademark pink blazer then, which I'd see her wear 100 times more later. Now, of course, I'm happy about where Rappler is now, all the achievements, the awards, recognitions, the Nobel. But when people ask me what truly makes me proud about being in Rappler, my mind always goes back to what I've seen in that old gymnasium in Naga 9 years ago, where Michael Josh talked about the potential of social media for social good. Natasha Gutierrez told us how she crowdsourced online for soccer balls to give away to kids for her birthday. And then Patricia Evangelista was also there to talk to us about the power of telling stories. Pasensya na lang daw kasi nagmumura siya sa speech niya. Taga-UP daw kasi siya. So compared to what we're dealing with now, the problems they were talking about then, they seemed more trivial, but they approached them with just as much conviction. And it's really amazing to me how many years forward, I look at Raptors and see the same eyes of passion and courage that the original 12 carried with them when they started, as if they're being passed down the company. So, and I say this as a true long-time Raptor fan, walang nagbago sa mga mata ng Raptors. Siguro may eye bags na ngayon, parang kami ni Leah. Pero kita mo pa rin yung tapang, ang dedikasyon, at kagustuhang magbago ang mundo. It truly is in our DNA. Being a Rappler means being visionary. Being a Rappler means being brave. So on behalf of all the other employees of Rappler, given this recognition, thank you to the management, our supporters, leaders, and of course our partners. To fellow Rappers, you guys are all awesome in many ways. I can't wait to see you all again in person. Or actually, that can wait because Omicron. Cheers to 2022 and the many years to come. Happy anniversary. Thank you.
Salamat, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin. Okay, Margie, now we proceed to the recognition of our 10-year service awardees.
Yan, yung mga lolo't lola natin. Mga ninuno ng Rappler.
Ninuno. Okay, let's begin with our first ninuno. Okay, congratulations and thank you, Emil Mercado.
Yay, Sir Emil. Our only manong. Next is Miss Cecil Santos.
Up next, we have Arnold Goeco.
Go, Kuya Arnold. And of course, Gemma Bagayawa Mendoza.
Up next, we have Beth Frondoso.
And Miss Chai Hofelenia. Yay, Miss Chai.
And of course, we also have Glenda Gloria.
And finally, who else but Maria Ressa?
And Margie, at this point, to deliver the acceptance speech on behalf of our 10-year service awardees, let's call in Emil Mercado. Sir Emil, go ahead.
Hello. Happy anniversary from Disney Nuno. Ayun, wow. Happy anniversary sa ating lahat. Sorry, I'm at a loss for words. Ang hirap magsalita para sa mga manang na kasabay ko rito sa 10-year awardee. But of course, I would like to thank them for having the dream, the vision, the audacity, and the tenacity to continue this, to keep this going. Siyempre, it gives inspiration to all of us na bahagi ng Rappler. Gusto ko rin pasalamatan yung the other two 10-year awardee na kasama namin dito na hindi manang, si Cecil tsaka si Arnold. They are the people behind Rappler, ang aming admin tsaka logistical staff na I guess kung mahirap ang trabaho ng reporters and the other parang nasa front end ng isang newsroom, the people behind it, the admin, the staff, the logistics, sila yung what keeps us going. Rappler gives us that sense of pride, but at the same time, that humility. Kasi everybody inspires each other. Kagaya nga na nabanggit kanina, we learn from the best. Yung mga veterans hindi nahihiyang magbahagi ng nalalaman nila sa mga kabataan. And at the same way, yung mga veterans rin naman or mga ninuno, which I think kasama na pala ako ron, we are also very open na matuto sa the younger ones. I'm speaking on behalf of my experience as have been parang lead ng creatives for I've been with Rappler since 2011 pero parang I've been the lead ng creatives since 2013. Marami nang dumating at umalis. I would like to thank all of them. Such brilliant young minds, brilliant artists na ang dami ko rin natutunan sa kanila. And I hope may natutunan din sila sa akin. And as much as yun din, if sa mga viewers natin who are not familiar siguro sa isang newsroom, ang Rappler ay hindi, paano ba? Kung may impression kayo na ang bawat newsroom ay parang may groupthink na iisa lang. Rappler is not like that. Ang vibrant ng energy sa Rappler, andun yung healthy discussion, andun yung healthy community, andun yung healthy debates. And from that, I guess dun yung take-off point. Kaya everybody is open to ideas, and open to discuss. Kaya with that, gusto ko rin ibalik yung pasasalamat sa community, our readers and our community partners who have been with us through the years. I wish that we may all have that courage to continue on facing the challenges ahead. Yun lang. Thank you. Haba na nasabi ko. Salamat.
Palakpakan po natin, Sir Emil Mercado. And syempre, Margie, saludo sa lahat ng ating 10-year service awardees.
Of
Thank you so
course.
much for the wisdom and for the leadership and everything. Okay, Margie, so before we end, no, we'd like to recognize, of course, shout out kay Pawi Bitanga for leading our team in producing
Yes,
our
go Pawi!
A Decade of Courage anniversary video. Thank you so much. Palakpakan natin, napakagandang video na
Galing ni
na-produce nila.
Pawi, as in.
Okay, Margie, go ahead. Ano na ba ang next natin?
Oh, so to end our virtual celebration, to lead us in a toast to Rappler, get your wine glasses or your chocolate milks ready. Let's call in Rappler's investigative editor, Miss Miriam Grace Go. Pasok, Miss Gigi. I think she's getting her wine ready.
Okay, so tuloy niyo yung time natin para i-prepare. Go ahead, Miss Gigi.
There.
Good evening, mga kapatid, kababayan. Since we've done some reminiscing in this gathering, you must be aware of this. In all the years that Rappler journalists asked the hard questions or sought to make public figures accountable, and for all our efforts to elevate the ethical and professional standards in the industry, our critics would derisively label us as, quote, God's gift to journalism, unquote. In fact, even before there was Rappler, this was how people who benefited from not so principled systems and practices would call independent journalists and unyielding advocates, as if there's something wrong with doing what is good and just and setting higher standards. So I was wondering how the critics would spin it if they knew about what I shared with the newsroom at the height of attacks on Rappler a few years ago, invoking my God. My God gave me the 23rd Psalm to encourage us to stay on the course. And some of you must be familiar with the verses. You prepare a feast for me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. The feast goes beyond the awards and the recognitions that Rappler has received. More importantly, I think it refers to the trust that our audience, our partners, our supporters have given us. And the oil of leadership is not about Rappler telling people what is good and bad, what is right and wrong, but about helping steer communities towards the better place that we all want for our country, for our society. In that overflowing cup, it's about the shared mission na hindi pa natin tapos. We will continue to pursue and will make sure we'll prosper. So how's that for being God's gift to journalism? The truth is, I think we're not God's gift to anybody, but I'd like to think that we are bearers of several gifts. The gift of being able to collaborate with other independent media organizations and journalists, the gift of creating technology to advance good journalism and sectoral advocacies, and the gift of being part of a community that works for the common good. So, to Rappler, and I don't mean just Rappler, the newsroom, Rappler, the organization, but Rappler, the larger community of supporters and partners and defenders. Here's to more years of excellent and compromising and groundbreaking journalism, to more years of technological innovations that empower people, and more years of bigger and stronger communities that make things happen. Let's do our best together. Gangbarimasyo. Kampai!
Cheers. Thank you, Miss Gigi.
Hi, Miss Gigi. Thanks. Okay.
Sugoy desu ne.
Kakanta na daw si Voltaire. He
Kakanta
said
si
he
Voltaire.
Kumusta ka
told
na,
me he
Bots?
prepared
Hindi na to
something.
live.
We are still. We are still
Yes,
live.
we're still here.
Kasi
Yeah,
kung
we're
hindi
still live.
live, kakanta na siya.
Okay. Wait for mga 3 more minutes. 3 more minutes. Tapos makakanta ka na.
Okay, go ahead, Margie.
All right. So thank you, Miss Gigi, for that toast. Thank you so much. And that ends our virtual celebration for tonight. We move forward towards a new decade together, where we will continue to hold the line, or as Voltaire used to say, hold the line because the line is long. So thank you so much, everybody. I'm Margie De Leon.
Another decade for journalism, technology, and community. I'm Jules Giang. This is a decade of courage, a Rappler 10th anniversary celebration. Thank you so much and happy 10th anniversary, Rappler.
Yay, thank you.
10 years.
So up next is a performance by Cheats, Honey Calm Down. And then after this, we can all talk and make chica and ask votes for more tech stories.